And just because Barbie has a size 0 waist and wears dark makeup, does that mean that's the only way to be beautiful? I mean, what kind of message does that send to men like me? I always remember that this is just a silly toy, and it shouldn't change the way I look at myself. And if anyone has a problem with me being myself, well, then they're probably not really my friends. I also don't just play with Barbies. I play with Legos and Mega Bloks, because while I definitely like Barbies, I like building things too, and I'm actually really, really good at it. My name is Tim Mortensen. I'm 43 years old, and I know that I don't need to be defined by Barbie. I can be whoever I want to be.
This is the Onion News Network.
Our Matrix server is about as free as internet chat can be. Join the existing rooms or create your own at chat.freetalklive.com. Free Talk Live.
It's Free Talk Live. It's talk radio that you control. And 603-283-6160 is the phone number for you to call. That's 603-283-6160. And with you in the studio tonight, it's me, Bonnie.
Riley.
And Nikki.
And we have a lot of different things to talk about tonight. It's the Wednesday night edition of the show, where the youngest all together hosts, and we talk about stuff like drugs and consciousness more often.
I think I'm the oldest on the show right now.
On the whole show?
No, not on the whole show, but on tonight.
Oh, yeah. I was like, wait, you're older than Captain? No, yeah.
No, not older than Captain.
I knew that. I don't know. But yeah, right now I think you're the oldest and Nikki's the youngest. So it's like just like a 10-year difference or something. Yeah. And I don't know. It's radio. So it's not like we're teenagers.
Exactly. We are. we're trying to do a somewhat professional show here.
Right.
I don't know how we do, but it's getting better.
I think so too. But the first story I wanted to talk about tonight was, this is from the Wall Street Journal. Apparently, social media is not cool anymore. Or at least that's how I'm deciding to put it.
Yeah, I'd agree with that.
I think that it's definitely getting less and less cool, if anything. Like,
It's definitely becoming like a culture war, a ticking time bomb of violence. I don't know if violence is the right word, but a ticking time bomb of passive-aggressive psychological trickery, people just arguing with each other. It's just a waste of energy anymore. It's like, I don't want to check into Twitter, but part of me is addicted to the culture war.
And I feel like it's always evolving, right? So like first it was MySpace, and then that kind of evolved into Facebook and Twitter. And then like as those things kind of fade out,
Snapchat
and then there's like
along,
Snapchat,
Reddit.
TikTok, all of those platforms, and I feel like they all appeal to kind of like a different demographic in a different age group.
Right.
You know what I mean?
That I always forget Snapchat is social media. I'm always like, yeah, I got rid of all social media. And I didn't even think that I didn't get rid of Snapchat.
Well, it feels like it feels more like a messaging platform to me, but I guess since you can post on your story and you can look at other people's stories and people that you don't know, so I guess it is. It definitely is social media, but the way I use it, at least, it definitely feels more like a messaging platform.
Yep, exactly. I use it more of a messaging platform, but once in a while I post on my story, and it's like, I don't know, like 15 people that I see post anymore. It's gotten less and less.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
I've had the same Snapchat since high school for
I've
like
never
10
used
years.
Snapchat.
Oh, really?
You're not really missing that much, honestly.
That's good to know.
Yeah.
It's maybe like you don't use it Instagram, do you?
No.
I was going to say maybe because it's just like a very visual thing, like people use it for sending pictures back and forth.
Yeah, and since I'm blind, we don't mention it on the show that much, but I am blind and I don't use pictures, so.
Yeah, but
yeah, you wouldn't really find much use for that.
No use whatsoever.
The other use for it though is going and just sending direct messages.
Yeah.
But the thing is, so they have the auto erase feature, and I don't know. There I have some friends who I not like strictly only talk to on Snapchat, but we communicate
I have that too, though.
More frequently on Snapchat, and I don't know why. I just need to delete it because I don't have like it. I always you do the thing where you're like, oh, sorry, what did you say? I forgot what you're replying to, because you don't, because the messages automatically disappear on Snapchat.
You can
so if you
it.
don't remember what the person said, then it's just like, what, back and forth.
If you at least check it like once a day, then you can change it now, and this has been a thing for like a couple years, where you can change it to where it's like delete after 24 hours.
Yeah.
So that kind of fixed it, as long as you're checking it like once a day. But
yeah, but it gets to the point where it's like, just message me on Telegram or Signal or text me or something.
I feel like I'm basically talking about how much I love Snapchat all of a sudden, but the point of this conversation is that social media actually just isn't cool anymore. At least that's what I think this article basically is saying. It says, it's from the Wall Street Journal. It says, we aren't posting on social media as much anymore. Will we ever? And I hate when media just says we. Ugh.
So, yeah, because I was thinking, are they talking about their own platform?
Right.
Or is it the collective we, like all of us?
Yeah, it's really hard to say what the Wall Street Journal is trying to get at here, because who are they talking to? I mean, they could be talking to their readers, but at the same time, it's really confusing when they use the word we.
They have a mouse in their pocket.
Exactly. They're trying to mouse pocket us.
Yeah, I just hate that. I hate when any kind of newspaper, magazine, media says we blah blah blah. It's just like, oh, you're so obviously trying to do it.
I kind of dislike it in general, the whole collectivism. Like, and it's hard to get away from, because I think it's ingrained into some of our language. But even sometimes, like, callers will call in and they'll be like talking about like the U.S. military or the government or something. They're like, we. And it's like, just
Iran,
like,
or
listen,
whatever.
I didn't bomb anybody.
Yeah.
And just because we all, or just because the people who are speaking were born here or live here, doesn't mean we're part of the collective United States. I would like to be separate
I would like
from
to be
that,
an
please.
individual. I'd like to have my own space. Thank you very much.
Yeah, like just today.
My own thoughts, my own thinking, my own will, whatever.
I heard somebody do it just today. They were talking about vegetarians look at they were talking about UFO abductions, and they're like, well, maybe they don't see it as a bad thing what they're doing to us, abducting people and testing on them. Maybe they see it just like how we see the way that we treat our livestock. And vegetarians will say that the way we treat our livestock. And I was just like, oh, why is he saying we? He's not a farmer.
Yeah, and it's like, I don't treat livestock
like anything. Yeah,
like anything. I don't really have that many interactions with, like, I don't have farm animals.
I don't either.
So.
I mean, but if I did, I'd hopefully treat them with some respect.
Yeah.
Is coconut livestock? Does that count?
No, I don't think so.
Coconut? I don't know if coconut's considered livestock. I think coconut is a family friend, or maybe just a family member, but still an animal family member.
I don't know where he is. Well, we were talking about the annoying mouse in your pocket that the Wall Street Journal is doing here, where they put, we aren't posting on social media as much anymore. Will we ever?
Are you posting on social media? 603-283-6160.
Yes, so you can call to answer that question, talk about what we're talking about, or even change the subject. But the thing about it is, it annoys me to get mouse pocketed, as you say, Riley, but it's also true of me, to be fair.
Yeah.
I'm posting on social media a lot less. Like, I used to just 2 weeks ago post on Twitter like 10, 30 times a day. And I just I was getting in a really bad spiral because the government stole my husband. So I was just
Which we need to remind the listeners about. The government kidnapped your husband and locked him in a cage for buying and selling electronic digital currency.
Yep, that's true. And you can learn more
doing
about
so
that.
without permission.
Yeah.
He didn't get the right papers in place for the so-called government, for the tyrants, despots, and thieves.
He did the same thing that some people in this case who are being called victims did, but without permission.
Yep.
And including the banks. But they don't get in trouble because, well, they had the paperwork. But you can go to thecrypto6.com for that. I think it's thecrypto6.com.
Yeah, it's thecrypto6.com.
I always mix it up with just crypto6.com. But so I was kind of feeling like I was spiraling a bit, just like, oh, everything sucks. And then I was like, I need to change something, just gonna make it Twitter. And I haven't even wanted to go back on. Like today, I clicked on someone's link for
Wait, so what did you just, the thing that you changed was just not going on Twitter as much?
Yeah, I already didn't have the app. I just, I logged out. And then, just today, I went on just to see what this tweet said that somebody shared in a group I'm in that had to do with the bills in the New Hampshire House. So I was reading that and I saw they had like 3 messages and I replied to them. But I like looked for a second and I was like, yeah, I'm not even like as tempted to just like sit there and scroll. And
yeah,
like I was getting to the point where I was like, I'd see those stupid things posted like, who was your 2nd grade teacher's middle name? And I almost was like, Melinda.
Yeah, you're like starting to like comment on stuff like that. Yeah, I know what you mean.
Yeah.
You do, because like when I get like that, I'm like, I gotta step back.
My feed is full. My feed is full of Mormons and former Mormons, and you know, being a former Mormon nowadays, it's like I really want to comment to all these Mormons and say, hey, you know, you may think your religion's good, but those of us who've left, you treat us like crap.
Oh.
Yeah, I could totally.
Do a lot of them
that.
treat you specifically like crap? Like
No.
I've heard many stories.
I just generally don't comment on stuff much right now, even though I'm really tempted to.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I do think it can be a little toxic, I think, because I will see stuff on my platform of choice, I guess, is Instagram. And I'll see stuff that I either disagree with, and this was actually a super cliche, but this was my New Year's resolution, was to be a little bit nicer in the comment section on Instagram, because I just noticed myself becoming incredibly judgmental in a non-productive way. And I just kind of wanted to step back. And then, you know, like if again, cliche, if you don't have anything nice to say, don't say anything at all, because even if I'm trying to educate someone or save them or whatever, realistically, they're probably not going to listen to what I have to say. I'm not going to change their mind. And I just end up looking like a jerk.
And that's how I feel about Twitter as well. Just the part about, well, they're not actually listening. Like I feel like most people aren't in the place that like you two and I are at, as far as like, oh, I want to know what the truth is and actually get at the truth. And
most people don't care.
Change my mind if I hear something.
Most people just want to yell at each other on a keyboard, and
they already believe what they believe.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
it has nothing to do with knowing. It only has to do with belief, literally.
And I think that's the problem with a lot of people. Like here on the show, we can have a conversation if you call in, and we can have a conversation with you. If you disagree with us, we want to hear about it. We want to talk to you about your disagreement with us, because to us, disagreement is extremely important. We can get to the bottom of what the truth is if you disagree with us. But on social media, we can't do that.
Yeah, and that's a great point. I feel like Free Talk Live and talk radio in general is such a better platform to have these sort of debates on. I think it is like the voice aspect of it versus the text aspect of it, because you're commenting back and forth on whatever social media platform, and I just don't always think, sometimes it works, but I think in general, it isn't a great method of having a legit debate.
No, it's really not.
Like a lot of times I say things that sound mean, but I'm joking, but I'm also being mean. But like I know that when I deliver it in person, people don't take it actually mean. It's like a joke. And when I do that on Twitter or something, it does not translate to sounds mean.
Because when you think about it, what do they say? 80% of our communication is body language, and like in that also comes like tone and delivery of how we say things. So the pitch in our voice, all these things create how we're communicating with people. So it's not just the actual words that you're saying. There's so much more to communication, and all of it gets lost in text.
I wonder if that's done by design for the social media companies to get us lost in translation when it comes to communication. Because when the people are lost in translation with communication and they're not communicating effectively, it's going to create anger, it's going to create misunderstanding, and eventually it's going to spill over into regular society.
Yeah, it creates division. And I think there is a ton of division on social media. And also, like, I see, like, the social media, but also, like, via text. I know a lot of people who will say things to you in the text format that they would never say to you, either over the phone or in person.
Yeah.
That's so true.
And I've actually had people, like, apologize to me before and be like, I'm sorry, just sometimes I get behind the keyboard and either that keyboard warrior comes out or or, I feel more confident to say things that maybe, aren't the nicest.
Yeah, and it's like our shadow aspects come out when we're hiding behind a keyboard and no one can see who we really are. And
sometimes that can actually be, I think, a good thing.
Sure, I agree, but at the same time, it's like, how about we really show ourselves off to the real world instead of hiding behind a keyboard? Yeah,
well, I definitely understand and agree with you guys about the division aspect.
Yeah.
But a lot of times I feel like anonymity on the internet is a really good thing. And I've never had a fake Twitter, but I think about it all the time because sometimes I have things I want to say I don't really want associated with my name, but I really feel. And maybe it's like not going to sound nice, but not to be mean to someone or something, but about like the state of the world, how I'm feeling about the state of the world, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
And I don't really want it associated with my name, like I'm online complaining about stuff, but I think that it can be a good way to get that out. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and there is a certain aspect of danger when it comes to like what you're saying on social media and how you're portraying yourself. I mean, I own 2 businesses, so everything I say could be used to be associated with my businesses.
Yeah. Sure.
And in one of my businesses, I actually have a business partner. Mm-hmm. And I think about that sometime because I'm the one that controls our business Instagram. And we, for the most part, have very similar philosophies. But there's a few points that I'm a little bit more, let's say, extreme on.
Mm-hmm.
And I think about that and I'm like, sometimes I will kind of put a disclaimer or just be like -Nikki, just so they understand it's me writing it and not her. Even though, like, yeah, she's in the business with me, like she's going to be associated with me. And, it's just, I think about that sometimes that it's like, okay, well.
I do it with like the Free Talk Live, social media and other stuff. Like on the Odyssey chat, I called Libertariat, who's a troll, a loser. And I was like, I probably should have put -Bonnie because I just don't want people to think like, oh, it's Captain or something or Ian being mean to the Libertariat, but he deserves it.
Yeah. It's collectively from all of us.
Yeah, I think it's sometimes if you represent like a business or a show or a company or whatever online, I think it's definitely important to be a little more professional.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
And it's just it's just privacy in general. Like when I was a kid, they would always teach us all the time, don't ever take a picture of yourself and post it on the internet where you're right in front of your house and your house number's there. Just things like that.
Yeah.
Yep.
And I don't know.
And now people love doing that.
Oh yeah, they love showing off their life to get likes and stuff like that.
Yeah, but you do have to be careful with that sort of stuff.
Yep, definitely. Well, why do you guys think this is going to be? Why do you think people are going on less?
I'm actually surprised by it. I don't know if I believe it.
I'm surprised
honestly.
by it too because it seems like social media has dominated the culture a lot. But I'm wondering if it's because people are just getting tired of keeping up with the Joneses or the culture wars going on.
I'm wondering if this particular article is talking about like maybe Facebook. And they're because there's always new social medias coming out. So maybe when they're talking about social media, they're talking about a couple particular, like the big ones, and maybe a lot of people are kind of migrating off of those platforms.
A lot of younger Gen Z, or I guess like mid Gen Z that I know, like people who are teenagers right now, 20, 21, they don't go on social media. They've never had an Instagram.
Oh, interesting.
And really? See, I don't know if I know a lot of that age group.
It's like maybe TikTok, definitely TikTok. But so this shocked me when I first started noticing it because I was like, I would just hang out with all the people I went to high school with. It would be weird for me to hang out with people who were currently high schoolers. But then when they were graduating, or I would go to a concert and there'd be like a 15-year-old girl, and I start talking to them just because we're like waiting in line next to each other, and you can't tell they're 15. They're so pretty and grown up.
I know it's the makeup and the dress, like how they dress. Yeah, they look like they're adults. It's for sure dangerous. For men. But we're getting off topic. But
so
you know what I mean?
The specific situation I'm talking about was 2019. I was talking to this girl. I was like, "You're 15. You look older than me." But anyways, no, I didn't say that. But I mean, that sounds mean, but she probably would have been like, yay, thank you. Because she was like, obviously wanting to look grown up and stuff.
Yeah.
But like, I was talking to her and she was like, I don't have Instagram. Well, I have one. Or yeah, Instagram. But I have one, but like, I've never posted on it. Like, what?
Yeah.
That's so weird. That made me like blow my mind. I was like, whoa, I meet people and I'm like, oh, add me on Instagram. Like to everyone I meet that's like my age. But I've learned more and more since then. That was just like the day I first heard of that. Like her and her friend she was with, they were like high schoolers, I guess.
Yeah.
And more since I've learned that, it's like everyone, like my sister's age and younger, she's 4 years younger than me. They just basically have TikTok and they like have Instagram but don't post on it.
So what do? They don't have any social media at all? They just have TikTok?
They definitely have like never had a Facebook in their life ever.
Yeah, I guess that's normal because I feel like Facebook is more older folks.
Yeah.
My girlfriend Alana says Facebook is for old people.
Around like how old is she? Like a millennial?
She's
Gen Z?
25, so
Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
So that all checks out.
yeah, checks out.
I kind of do believe it. I feel like I've met more and more people in my life who aren't just young people who like for some reason hate Instagram and Twitter, but even people like my age and older who are just like, yeah, I'm getting off it. I realized it isn't like very productive for me. It's wasting my time. Just so many people. Like sometimes I feel like social media is just like the ghetto of the internet because it's just like you go on there and it's like there are not very many like high quality people to conversate with.
Well, you're not like learning there. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I think the internet can be so valuable. It's such a valuable resource, but many people use it in non-productive ways.
Yeah.
And like with TikTok, it's like, you know, TikTok's a great example because some people, their feed is full of like educational contents and news and all these, you know, like more productive content to be consuming. And then some people, it's just more, I don't want to, I guess
There's
just like
traps.
dumb stuff. Yeah, just stuff that's not like actually
Just
important.
entertainment. Yeah.
In my opinion.
And it's like, I definitely use the internet for some things that are just entertainment, not to be taken seriously. So I'm not like judging anyone like that. But I also just like, I couldn't imagine just immersing myself with that all day in and out, like
There
at all
needs
times.
to be boundaries with it. And I do think entertaining content and comedy, I think that is so valuable, especially where we live in such a high stress world these days. And we're like constantly being bombarded with like news from all around the world. And most of it's really negative.
Oh, yeah.
So I do think
It's
it
overwhelming.
can be, it is overwhelming. So I think those like just funny, you know, you're just watching, you know, videos and it's funny and you can laugh and enjoy it, or movies or whatever. I do think that's valuable. But it probably is a good thing to also be like knowing what is going on in the world, I think is valuable. I think that's really important. I think a lot of people kind of have the blinders on and they're not aware of what's in our food. They're not aware of like what the power, you know, like what's going on with the powers.
Like how the government works,
you know
at
what I
all.
mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, like they don't understand any of that and they're just kind of like blindly following orders, and they're just more interested in materialism and consumerism, and they're not really, and to each their own. I mean, like people should have the right to do whatever they
yeah, of
want. I
course.
just don't think
If you're
it's
stuck
good.
in like survival mode, it kind of makes sense. Like, why would you want to sit around learning about how the government works? 603-283-6160. I just think it's like balance. Like you should
Balance your life effectively.
in every single way. 603-283-6160. It's Free Talk Live. More coming up.
This hour of Free Talk Live is brought to you by Dash Digital Cash. Dash is the cryptocurrency designed to be used for spending. In addition to being one of the world's first cryptocurrencies, Dash was the first crypto project to have a decentralized autonomous organization that to this day continues to improve and promote Dash. Every month, 10% of the mining rewards go into a treasury. Anyone with one Dash to spend can put forward a proposal to the Dash masternodes. The masternodes vet the proposals and decide which ones move forward and are funded by that treasury. Nowadays, DAOs are plentiful, but Dash paved the way by doing it first nearly a decade ago. Dash is one of the oldest cryptocurrencies and is widely available on exchanges, including the decentralized Maya protocol, and in multi-crypto wallets. It's easy to get and use Dash. Start by learning more at dash.org. Thanks to the Dash DAO for sending us 32 Dash per month to promote Dash on the air. Visit dash.org to learn about Dash. Dash.org.
From Feature Story News in Washington, I'm Caroline Malone. The United Nations has warned that the death of Hamas deputy chief Salah al-Rouri may escalate conflict in the Middle East. William Denslow reports from the UN headquarters in New York.
A spokesperson for the UN's mission in Lebanon says the Beirut attack could have devastating consequences on both sides of the border between Lebanon and Israel. Hamas has described it as a terrorist act, and its ally Hezbollah says it was an attack on Lebanon's sovereignty. Israel, without claiming responsibility, insists it was not an attack on Lebanon. As the conflict between Hamas and Israel continues, the UN has raised concerns over the risk of regional spillover. UN Secretary-General Antonio Guterres has called on all parties to exercise maximum restraint, implement a ceasefire and de-escalate tensions. William Denslow, New York.
A 10-year-old boy has been arrested on suspicion of killing another child with his father's gun in the US state of California. Police found the 10-year-old boy bleeding in a parking lot, and he was later pronounced dead at the hospital. The suspect was allegedly angry after losing an informal bike race. His father has also been booked on suspicion of possession of a firearm by a felon, child endangerment, and acting as an accessory to a crime. US correspondent Kate Fisher reports.
According to the sheriff's office, the boy had gone out to his father's truck to get him cigarettes when he found a loaded gun. The victim had been riding his bike when the boy bragged that his father had a gun and then shot him once before running into a nearby apartment. The suspect's father was arrested on suspicion of carrying a stolen and loaded firearm in a vehicle, child endangerment, and being an accessory to a crime after the fact. Kate Fisher, Washington.
Junior doctors in England have started the new year with 6 days of industrial action in a long-running dispute over pay. If it continues as planned, it will be the longest strike by doctors in National Health Service history. Stuart Smith reports from outside University College Hospital in London.
Last year, they already managed to agree a 9% pay rise, and at the end of last year, they were negotiating with the government about boosting that by 3% more, but it's of course far short of what they would like of 35%. Now, junior doctors in Scotland did manage to negotiate a 17% rise, making the argument that the cost of living crisis, inflation and a lack of pay rises over the last decade meant that that figure was deserved. But in the meantime, junior doctors say they will strike until the government starts to make them a, quote, credible offer. They make up around half of the workforce in the NHS, and so it's having big impacts and will have big impacts on the availability of non-urgent operations.
You can stick it to the man and big tech. Join our FTL social mastodon at social.freetalklive.com.
It's Free Talk Live. It's talk radio that you control. And 603-283-6160. That's the phone number that you can call to get in on the conversation with us. You can bring up whatever is on your mind. You can change the subject. You can comment on what we're talking about, your opinion. It doesn't matter. It's Free Talk Live. And that's 603-283-6160. And this hour of Free Talk Live is brought to you by Dash, Digital Cash. Dash is the cryptocurrency designed to be used for spending. Rising fees have made Bitcoin useless for purchases, but Dash continues to have fees less than 1 cent per transaction, and its features ensure Dash is undefeated as the most useful cryptocurrency in the marketplace. From a technical standpoint, Dash transactions are irreversible, and its network is protected from 51% attacks by their Chainlocks technology. There's no need to wait for a confirmation before considering a Dash transaction complete, so it's great for merchants. Dash is one of the oldest cryptocurrencies and is widely available on exchanges including the decentralized Maya protocol and in multi-crypto wallets. It's easy to get and use Dash. Start by learning more at dash.org. Big thanks to the Dash DAO for sending us 32 Dash per month to promote Dash on the air. Visit dash.org to learn more about Dash. Dash.org. And with you in the studio tonight, you've got me, Bonnie,
Riley,
and Nikki.
Before we move on to what we're going to talk about, I just want to mention that today is the Bitcoin's birthday. It's the day the first Genesis block was mined on Bitcoin.
They have so many birthdays. I thought it was Halloween. I guess that's the white paper.
That's when the white paper was
written.
written.
And then there's the pizza day, the Bitcoin pizza day.
And we talk about cryptocurrency a lot here on Free Talk Live because we value the idea that government should not be running our money system. And Bitcoin was the first big cryptocurrency. And unfortunately, it's become rather useless as a currency because of all the high network fees. So that's why we promote Dash on the radio.
I have like an autism or something to where I remember a lot of these things. So I happen to also know that it's Greta Thunberg's birthday.
Really?
And the
it's
guy
like so
who,
random.
Yeah.
How do you learn that?
How dare you?
The guy who shot people in Wisconsin.
Oh my gosh.
What's his name?
I have no clue.
Not a killer or like a murder, like a mass murderer. Kyle Rittenhouse. It's his birthday too.
Oh, yeah.
And they were born the same year.
That's actually really funny because those are like two.
Right.
Like they're probably the same age, but it's like two opposites.
They were born the exact same day, like year and everything. And that's the reason that I saw this on the internet. Somebody said like, the thing about astrology that I can't believe is the fact that Kyle Rittenhouse and Greta Thunberg have the same birthday.
But
and
that's all it
today.
takes to be born in a different spot, and it changes a lot.
She's probably born in I forgot what country
she's
from.
But
Sweden.
Europe.
Yeah, she's from Sweden.
I think so. Yeah.
Yep.
Okay, and he was probably born in Wisconsin or whatever. And so
I bet neither of them are real.
Real people.
They're probably not.
You think they're hallucinations, or do you think
they're
say
my friend met
from the Matrix?
Like, or like
actors or something.
Yeah, like what is it called when they brainwash people?
MK Ultra.
Yes, they were MK Ultra or whatever.
I think
or they're robots. Okay. Who knows?
Like
Crisis
I'm pretty
actors.
sure he's a real person because my friend met him at the Revolution thing.
I'm sure you can see him with your eyes. But
yeah,
I can't. Except it's probably because I'm blind.
But when I talk about like, oh, I bet that person is just like, it's a fake person, like Joe Biden. I mean, like an actor. Like, they don't really think the things they are saying out of their mouth. They're just part of the fakery.
Yeah.
The world is a stage. So I believe it. We were talking in the last segment about this story from the Wall Street Journal. It says, we aren't posting on social media as much anymore. Will we ever? Excessive ads, bots, and misinformation have sucked the fun out of sharing publicly, users say. And that's actually a good point. I hadn't really thought about that. The bots. Oh my God.
Yeah. They're everywhere.
Lots of people log into social media every day. Fewer and fewer are actually posting. Isaiah Hugg spends roughly 2 hours a day scrolling through Instagram. Oh my gosh. But his last post to his main feed was over a year ago. And see, that's what I'm telling you about young people. I wonder how old he is. He occasionally posts stories which vanish after 24 hours. Quote, I don't need to add more friction to my life and have people bickering about who I voted for or what I think. The 24-year-old Marine artillery officer who is based in Carlsbad, California said. And I'm telling you, everybody his age is like that, I think. It seems like to me. He prefers one-on-one group chats, which he calls private networking. The other thing I didn't really point out is I've noticed, at least for a decade, that boys or males are way less likely to have any kind of social media at all. And sometimes you'll just meet a guy and someone will be like, oh, show me him. You'll be like, he doesn't have anything.
Or like at least not posting photos.
You might have a Facebook with like an old picture and he's just like friends with his mom and like you don't have a picture of him to share.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like the opposite of birds, you know. I mean, that sounds so random. But you know how like male birds are typically very colorful and flamboyant. I feel like that's kind of how human women are, where they have to be, you know, like they like to wear makeup and they're almost like they're the ones trying to attract a mate and they're a little bit more into their appearance and yeah.
I just think that women have so much more fun doing that stuff. Like I don't paint my nails to attract a mate, but it's one of like the top most fun things I can think of, you know?
Painting your nails?
Yeah, just like decorating things on me. I put blue eyeliner on today. Why?
Yeah, but that's the so girls like to be more typically girls like to be a little bit more decorated and more out there, and men just don't always care as much.
Like, I used to feel like my Instagram was like a work of art over time of my life and pictures and my face. And I just kind of got really tired of it really suddenly. Like, I just was like, I don't even want to look at Instagram anymore. I don't care about what anyone else is saying. And I kind of became that type of person for a while that just mostly posted on stories and not like on my Instagram anymore because it seemed just pointless. Like, I don't know, I had a lot of changes in my life all at once and it just got me thinking, and then I just felt like it was just like I didn't know the point of it anymore. I don't know. It says, billions of people access social media monthly, but users are posting less and favoring a more passive experience. Surveys of users and research from data analytics firms say.
Okay, yeah, so what you were just describing, and I think I know a lot of people who kind of, you'll see them like a lot of things, but they don't really post or share.
Like, I'm not posting or sharing a ton because, like, the other person said in this article, I don't feel like people need to know, like, my thoughts on the government or whatever, because I'll just write about it in my journal and reflect on it later.
Yeah.
Maybe, I wonder if the rise of social media has any correspondence, like if there is a downward projection of people writing in journals, or if anyone could know that.
Oh, I'm sure there is.
With like a survey, I guess.
Yeah, I'm sure there is, because I also think, in regards to journals, it was something to do. And, it's like same with like people don't read as much books anymore. Because there are all of these other things that you can do on the internet. So it's like not everyone is going to take the time to write in a journal when they could watch a YouTube video or watch a movie or something.
Mm-hmm.
I do like to write, but for whatever reason, I've for years just felt like I couldn't just write in a journal. And I used to, like, especially as a kid and a teenager, it was just really fun to write like in a diary to me. And I stopped doing that, but I have one right now specifically for writing down my dreams.
Yeah, dream journal.
And I feel like that's like, I don't know, it kind of like jogs my brain a bit more than any other, like, not any other, but like most other things I could be choosing to do.
Yeah. I think journaling is very valuable for that reflection aspect. So like dream journals.
Like, so for me, I've been keeping a journal since 2009. So I have a lot to look at back on. It's like 300 pages worth of stuff. So I'm excited to look back at my journal entries and occasionally think, I've changed a lot in the past year or two. Like, I've moved to New Hampshire from Utah, and it's just, I like to look back at past journal entries and reflect on my life.
And you know what?
Has changed.
I just realized that I think that like Snapchat took the place of that for me, because Snapchat lets you look back at things.
Oh yeah, like the memories. Yeah.
When I feel like looking back, I think of something and I feel like looking back, I'll like scroll to that part of my memories in my Snapchat.
Yeah.
So maybe, I don't know, maybe that'd be a fun thing to start doing, because it is
it is similar. It's like a visual or like photo journal.
Yep.
I suppose.
But I mean, I feel like I've lost a lot of like what was I thinking about at the time, because just maybe 2 weeks ago, I found where I had written down some thoughts I had after watching like a spirituality video. I don't know why I did this, because I wasn't like planning to keep a long journal. I was like, what is this? I read it and I was like, I forgot all about that thought process, and it's really interesting. I like it. Like, I wish I didn't just write it down and forget. Maybe I should do it more.
But yeah, I think that's so valuable to be able to stumble upon stuff like that and be like, oh yeah, and it kind of, brings that back. Because I even think about that with, I read a lot of books, and I probably lose a lot of that.
Yeah, I think about that too.
Of that, knowledge.
Yeah, when you read a book and don't write about it, it get lost somewhere.
Maybe I should do that. That's a great, oh my God, these are all great ideas. Like with the dream journal, I think it's like something that's just barely breaking the ice of helping me be able to start writing, because I felt like I just a block when I thought about writing a journal every day.
Yeah.
But it's something I already just thought of, or, just experienced, and I can write it down.
Our ancestors definitely kept journals, and it's really nice to know that they kept their journals because then we can read about their histories, we can learn about them.
Yeah, well, like a lot of memoirs and stuff that were because somebody found their journal, and it taught us so much about history and what it was like to be a person in that time period.
And I feel like social media will have somewhat of a similar thing in the future. But it probably won't be exactly the same because you won't write down things you don't want anyone else to know until you're dead.
Journals are more personal, and I also feel like with social media, there's such a flood of information and such a flood of content. It's like, you know, if I want someone to look back on my life, it's like, okay, they're just looking at a bunch of memes and like photos of me, and it feels like it's more surface level where there's a lot more depth to a journal, especially a personal journal. You know, if you're writing like an autobiography or like a memoir or something, that is something you're intending on sharing with people. But a personal journal, I mean, that it almost feels invasive to read someone's personal journal. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean,
Do
I
you
wouldn't
keep
read
a journal? 603-283-6160.
Well, I read my ex-husband's journal. Anyways, billions of people access social media monthly, but users are posting less and favoring a more passive experience. Surveys of users and research from data analytics firms say. In an October report from data intelligence company Morning Consult, 61% of U.S. adult respondents with a social media account said they have become more selective about what they post. And that's kind of vague. The reasons are varied. People say they feel they can't control the content they see. They have become more protective about sharing their lives online. They also say the fun of social media has fizzled.
You know, since we're airing our grievances about social media, another thing I don't appreciate is how social media has it changed from you following people and then those people were in your feed. Now, even on Instagram, it's like they're constantly suggesting, oh, you would like this, you would like this. It's like the whole thing is a For You page that you would see on Twitter or TikTok.
Yeah.
And to me, that's really frustrating because if I wanted to see that content, I would follow those people.
It's like,
and it's okay if it's separate, if they're like, okay, this is where we recommend stuff for you. If it's a two separate thing, but
because Twitter has that.
Yeah, now with Instagram, it's like I can't separate my feed. It's almost like they're advertisements for these random things.
I would love that if Instagram had the ability for you to choose, because back in high school, I don't even think I had an Instagram in middle school, but definitely high school, I found it very fun to go on Instagram and look at what specifically my friends had posted. It was like every single day. Like I would go on Instagram for
now
long
our feeds
periods
are
of
so
time.
cluttered with everything else. It's like,
that you don't
I
care
want
about.
to do this anymore.
Yeah, and I feel like they also don't understand what I like.
Well,
you know what I mean? Like they're not doing a very good job at curating and like recommending things for me. Like for a while they were recommending these really like traditional Christian women that were like, you need to be subservient to your husband. And it's like, okay, yeah. And it was a ton of them. And I'm like, listen.
Sound like Nikki.
No, it's not.
She does not sound like the type of person to be subservient to Matt.
Yeah, exactly. So it's like, what the heck? It's like, you know, just because I like canning and gardening.
Yeah.
Doesn't mean that I'm not really Christian, you know, I'm not religious in that way. So it's like, listen, Instagram, you got me all wrong. So it was just frustrating because I'm like, I don't want to see this. I don't like this. And then that stems into me posting the mean comments like, this is disgusting. Like, you shouldn't be teaching your children this.
Yeah.
And it's just judgmental. And it's like,
that's such a good point.
I just don't want to see it. You know,
I just feel like it's a double-edged sword because there are instances where I feel exactly the same way. Like, why is it showing me this? I hate this. I go and block it and tell it, do not show me more like this. Like on Twitter, at least it has that. I'm not sure about Instagram, but it's a double-edged sword because there are also some accounts that I would never have found any other way.
Yeah.
Like I don't know. People live in other states and I follow them more for like the informational stuff they post.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
I would have never found them if it wasn't suggested to me, but for the most part, it's really off base. And then sometimes you like one post, and then all of a sudden your Instagram is filled with nothing but crazed Lana Del Rey fan postings.
Yes,
because you like one thing about her.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah,
that's so sometimes like cringy. Or like the YouTubers are like Sam and Colby have a lot of like tween girl followers that post stuff like Colby when he has a bit of facial hair, heart eyes.
God,
And it's like,
no.
Jesus.
And you're like, I really don't need to see this.
I really don't. It says this lurker mentality, and do you guys know what lurker means? Somebody's just there to look.
Yeah, they don't really comment or like or anything.
Yep. Says this lurker mentality is widespread across meta platforms, Instagram and Facebook, along with X and TikTok. They have become some of the most powerful companies and platforms in the world due to heavy usage and interaction from users. Any threat to that interaction is a threat to their business. The companies are responding. They are investing in more private user experiences like messaging and making interactions more secure, and encouraging people to post to a more intimate audience, as with Instagram's recently expanded Close Friends feature, which Instagram and Snapchat both have this, where you can post to your story, but you have curated a list and only your close friends can see it. David Kennedy, a 27-year-old office assistant in Chicago, has 4 different TikTok accounts. 3 for posting, 1 for scrolling.
Wow.
That's funny. An aspiring model, he loves to post photos on Instagram too. His friends, not so much. In a sea of Instagram reels from influencers, it is rare he spots a familiar face. Oh yeah, that's so true. I hate the reels. It's like Instagram tried to become TikTok, and now it's like you see a bunch of videos, which I don't really like on Instagram.
Yeah.
I wish it was just...
And that's the thing. I do enjoy Instagram because I follow so many really awesome pages that give me a lot of educational content, and and it also gives me a platform to market and promote my own business, which is fabulous. But it's trying to be something it's not, and occasionally it does get frustrating.
Yeah.
But
like
clearly people like it because a lot of people use the reels. And since I don't go on TikTok, I don't mind the reels because I don't get that on other platforms.
I just think TikTok does the best job of
probably
reels. So
because that's their whole thing,
they're so good at it that it just everything else seems like ghetto TikTok. Like it's just like
and you'll tell because sometimes people will be narrating their reels on Instagram. And they'll say, oh, I am making this video for TikTok or something like that. So they are reusing the content where there's this feature on a lot of social media platforms where you can share to different pages.
Yeah.
So I can post something on TikTok, let's say, and it'll post to my Facebook and my Instagram and my Twitter. So to get the most, to get your post out there the most, people will post everywhere. So it's kind of like recycling content.
Yeah, and sometimes it doesn't like cross over. Like I see people try to put shorts on Odyssey. That's just, don't do that. It's stupid.
But even you can do that on YouTube now.
Yeah.
They have shorts on YouTube. And I don't love the shorts. I think there's a time and a place for it, but I think and we've talked about this on the show before. I can't remember if it was a Wednesday show, but it's creating or appealing to people with very short attention spans.
Yeah.
So now we're having this entire generation of people who can't pay attention for longer than like 2 minutes.
Yeah.
And it's like, how are you actually like, because when you read a book, for instance, it's probably going to take you anywhere from like 4 to 10 hours.
Oh yeah, you got to get into
to read that book.
You have to meet the characters, learn about the story.
Well, and even if it's like nonfiction, it's like you can get some information from Instagram or from a TikTok, but you're going to get so much more depth of information in a book or a podcast episode. But people can't even pay attention for a 45-minute long podcast episode anymore.
Yeah, and I don't understand that because it seems like lots of people have loved movies like my whole life, and I've never really been a movie person, but now all of a sudden people can't watch a YouTube video.
Yeah, but I feel like it also is kind of the younger generation. I mean, I do see some like boomer age people who are kind of developing into this because of their social media usage. It's kind of like molding them. Yeah, it's like kind of molding them into having this sort of attention span. But I do notice this more with kids and with teenagers.
I have talked about on this show before, but it was like a really long time ago. One thing that I think social media has done to old people, and I don't like it and I don't get it, is their misuse of ellipses. I'm not sure if you make that plural. They're constantly like, how are you today? ... Yeah. And it's like, are you mad at me? And I didn't know that other people thought about this, but one day I was just like, it was so annoying. Like everybody I worked with was at least like a Gen X person, or older. And I Googled like, why do old people put ... after everything? And there was like a whole article, with somebody complaining about it. It was like, I'm always thinking my mom hates me or is disappointed in me or something because.
Or they have more to say. I mean, an ellipsis is, to me, is like, I've got more to say. Then why aren't you saying it?
Or like or trailing off, or a pause.
They just use it for period, and it makes no sense at all. And I'm not saying all old people, but tons of them. Like, they'll be like, haven't seen you in a while, ... And you think that if I said that to someone my age, I think that they would immediately take it like I was like, you're avoiding me. You know?
Or something,
Or like something.
Because, it typically, it just means there's more there.
Right.
That you're either not saying or you're going to say.
They're misusing it, literally. They're not using it correctly. And it's so weird. And I think it's Facebook. Because I see it all the time on Facebook. And I don't know why.
Where did they learn it, though?
They must have learned about it in school. I feel like we didn't even learn about it in school.
But that's the thing. It's like when you're learning... in
grammar and sentence structure, they should teach you about ellipsis and
I feel like they
had
to. But I'm saying, where did they learn how to misuse it?
Exactly. I think it's memes from India or something, like memes from some foreign country. I don't know, because that's what they look at all day. That's what old people look at on Facebook all day. And that part just irritates me. And it's just so interesting how there are different things that, like, I don't remember what it was you said now, but you said something about how it affects older people, because it's just like social media. Oh no, you were talking about how it affects younger people. Social media definitely affects older and younger people in different ways, and I think it's mostly negative. Well, it's great that we're all more. I don't know. I was gonna say that we're all more. It's great that we have the ability to connect with people who aren't physically anywhere near us.
Yeah, I do think that is very valuable, and that's why a big reason why I have a Facebook. I have family all over the country, and it's nice to be able to connect with my cousins in Alaska. It's not going to be very easy for me to go to Alaska.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So it's nice to be like, oh, like, look at, my cousin's kids, they're growing up, and, she can see the same thing about my life.
And it's just nice to post an update somewhere to say, here's what's going on, and have people look at it.
I just hate Facebook so much, so viscerally and so deeply. I just had to get it to where, like, I also have family all over the country, and I just had to, like, give them my phone numbers and be like, hey, I don't have Facebook, by the way. And then if they have something to tell me, they can text me. Like, I mean, it's a bit harder, I guess, than just going on there and it getting fed to me. But it's just, I feel like Facebook is really harmful to my brain. 603-283-6160. It's Free Talk Live. More coming up. You can call in with whatever's on your mind. It's 603-283-6160. Free Talk Live. More coming up.
On Free Talk Live, we're bringing people to the ideas of liberty every day. From wrestling superstars like Glenn Jacobs.
You guys really are having an impact, I believe. Like I said, a lot of where I am now is due to listening to Free Talk Live. You changed my mind on some very important issues years ago.
To random people tuning in on the radio.
I was kind of stuck in the left-right paradigm. I heard your show by chance on a Saturday night. From there, I went on, joined the Free State Project, and become an amplifier. So, I mean, that's really the reason why I amp is because I know that if it wasn't for you guys being on as many stations as you are, I never would have found the ideas of liberty.
You can help more people hear the message of liberty by joining Free Talk Live's AMPS program on Patreon for as little as $5 a month. And you'll get access to special perks. Visit amps.freetalklive.com, amps.freetalklive.com.
My name is Jacob Hornberger. I'm president of the Future of Freedom Foundation, which Congressman Ron Paul awarded for having an outstanding freedom website. Write us at fff@fff.org, and we'll send you a free 3-month subscription to our monthly journal of libertarian essays and our booklet, Economic Liberty in the Constitution, which George Mason University economics professor Walter Williams praised in a recent column. That's fff@fff.org.
What if you want to hear the latest episode of Free Talk Live, but all you have is your phone? you forgot to download our archive, and you have no data connection, you can call our Listen line at 641-793-0191. That's a long-distance number, so you may incur charges. If not, listen as long as you want. 641-793-0191. The Free Talk Live Listen line, 641-793-0191.
You're listening to the live edition of Free Talk Live. Hour number 2 is next, after the news, here on the Liberty Radio Network at LRN.FM.
From Feature Story News in Washington, I'm Caroline Malone. The United Nations has warned that the death of Hamas deputy chief Salah al-Rouri may escalate conflict in the Middle East. William Denslow reports from the UN headquarters in New York.
A spokesperson for the UN's mission in Lebanon says the Beirut attack could have devastating consequences on both sides of the border between Lebanon and Israel. Hamas has described it as a terrorist act, and its ally Hezbollah says it was an attack on Lebanon's sovereignty. Israel, without claiming responsibility, insists it was not an attack on Lebanon. As the conflict between Hamas and Israel continues, the UN has raised concerns over the risk of regional spillover. UN Secretary-General Antonio Guterres has called on all parties to exercise maximum restraint, implement a ceasefire and de-escalate tensions. William Denslow, New York.
A 10-year-old boy has been arrested on suspicion of killing another child with his father's gun in the US state of California. Police found the 10-year-old boy bleeding in a parking lot, and he was later pronounced dead at the hospital. The suspect was allegedly angry after losing an informal bike race. His father has also been booked on suspicion of possession of a firearm by a felon, child endangerment, and acting as an accessory to a crime. US correspondent Kate Fisher reports.
According to the sheriff's office, the boy had gone out to his father's truck to get him cigarettes when he found a loaded gun. The victim had been riding his bike when the boy bragged that his father had a gun and then shot him once before running into a nearby apartment. The suspect's father was arrested on suspicion of carrying a stolen and loaded firearm in a vehicle, child endangerment, and being an accessory to a crime after the fact. Kate Fisher, Washington.
Junior doctors in England have started the new year with 6 days of industrial action in a long-running dispute over pay. If it continues as planned, it will be the longest strike by doctors in National Health Service history. Stuart Smith reports from outside University College Hospital in London.
Last year, they already managed to agree a 9% pay rise, and at the end of last year, they were negotiating with the government about boosting that by 3% more, but it's of course far short of what they would like of 35%. Now, junior doctors in Scotland did manage to negotiate a 17% rise, making the argument that the cost of living crisis, inflation and a lack of pay rises over the last decade meant that that figure was deserved. But in the meantime, junior doctors say they will strike until the government starts to make them a, quote, credible offer. They make up around half of the workforce in the NHS, and so it's having big impacts and will have big impacts on the availability of non-urgent operations.
From bureaus worldwide, this is FSN.
With FSN Spotlight, I'm Simon Marks. Today remembering Peter Magubane, the photographer who chronicled South Africa's apartheid regime. He died on Monday at the age of 91, and he was unequalled in terms of the quality of his visual images and the commitment he brought to their creation for more than 70 years. Magubane got his start on Drum magazine in the 1950s, a storied publication that chronicled apartheid's inequities. In the 1960s, he covered the government's crackdown on Nelson Mandela and other anti-apartheid luminaries and caught horrific images of both the Sharpeville massacre in 1960 and the Soweto uprising 16 years later. He was arrested often and spent 586 days in solitary confinement after his detention in 1969.
I was prepared to die for the cause of improving my country, to be able to document whatever I can about my country, send it overseas to be seen around the world. Yeah. Because keeping it in my country won't help me at all. But if it's seen around the world, then the people can begin to use power to change whatever is there.
Peter Magubani succeeded in that effort. His images shocked audiences worldwide and even today are a searing indictment of his own country's past. With FSN Spotlight, I'm Simon Marks.
And the main news again. The United Nations is concerned there may be an escalation in violence following the killing of a Hamas deputy chief in Lebanon. A 10-year-old has been arrested over the murder of another 10-year-old in the US state of California after allegedly shooting the other child with his father's gun. There's more from us on Twitter at Feature Story. And that's the latest from Feature Story News. Caroline Malone.
Jode Cress Beckler. From claim jumpers to politicians to coyotes, the straight shooter that shook up the presidential race is taking them all on and licking them good.
Hello, Jode.
Who and what's behind these potato monkey shines?
Well, these scientists are trying to mass-produce potatoes that are more resistant to disease, but they're doing so in potentially dangerous ways that alter their DNA.
Tater disease, what brung us Irish.
Right.
You give a tater man's constitution, you can bet he's coming to play old Joe to call.
Yes, well, nature's revenge could come in the form of disease
now you listen
or
to
allergens.
Me, taters. You gave a mind of a tater.
Jode, please, let me make my point.
You're tater-minded and you're looking to infiltrate old Joe's cabin, but you're too late.
No.
Now you get out before I slice your tater heart out and fry it up on my grill.
Okay, Jode.
Now y'all stay close here. Gonna have my jug band back here, and if Jasper don't let me strum the washboard, we're gonna resort to cutting.
This is the Onion News Network.
Don't miss a moment of Free Talk Live. Get our archives daily via our podcast at feeds.freetalklive.com. Free Talk Live.
It's Free Talk Live. It's talk radio that you control. And 603-283-6160 is the phone number for you to call in with whatever is on your mind. That's 603-283-6160. And with you in the studio tonight, you've got me, Bonnie. Oh, wait, sorry, I didn't unmute you guys. Sorry.
Riley.
And Nikki.
She's trying to censor me.
Yeah, censor
We need to bring in the police and stop her from censoring us.
I'm Joe Biden or whatever.
Bonnie Biden.
Oh, God. But we do have a caller on the line. We have Russell from New Hampshire. Russell, what's on your mind?
Hey there. So you unmuted me so me and Riley can talk?
Yeah, we can talk, Russell.
I'm allowing it.
I wanted to ask you guys a question about NH Exit and tell you guys about when our hearing is going to happen. It just got announced.
Okay.
Which part do you want first?
The question.
Yeah, let's do the question first.
The first thing is, I was wondering, amongst the three of you guys, do you think New Hampshire is going to secede first or Texas?
New Hampshire.
I gotta say Texas, honestly.
I would have to agree with Bonnie. I think Texas will be the first to go. New Hampshire is going to talk about it for a bit. I mean, we have some measures coming up that will push the process, hopefully, but
yeah,
we got to have a conversation here in New Hampshire to the New Hampshire voters, because New Hampshire has a lot of left-leaning voters, and I think secession would appeal to leftists whether they realize it or not. So it's getting them on board with secession that's going to be the challenge. So I think Texas might be the first
Texas,
to go.
it's already an ingrained conversation based on their history.
Right.
They used to be like in New Hampshire also used to be an independent state, but Texas did more, not like as in not part of the United States at all. And then they just joined the United States, and they made sure they have their ability to leave if they want, like enshrined, even though.
Yeah, I guess that does make sense. Has there been anything recently in Texas where they're like introducing new legislation?
Yes, there is this thing that they had gotten over 100,000 signatures for to get it on, but I couldn't exactly describe what it is. Maybe Russell could, but the Republicans were like dragging their feet getting the signatures verified, even though it's their job. The bad Republicans.
Oh, okay.
Well, they have the same problem as us. The GOP in New Hampshire is not on board with our secession talk either, just like Texas yet. So, yeah, they don't have any way to put a referendum on the ballot like on like California can, and they don't have any way to make easy laws like here in New Hampshire. So they're trying to put something on the primary ballot for Republicans, and the Republicans are fighting them. So we'll see what happens.
So who do you think will secede first?
Well, my hope is that Texas secedes first and New Hampshire sneaks out and nobody notices.
Is that because you want New Hampshire to secede and while no one else is looking while they're fighting over Texas?
Yeah, and nobody, and we've been joking about, we're only 0.4% of the U.S. population, so they might not even notice.
Yeah, we're barely even a percentage, so why would they want to cling to a state like New Hampshire?
Yeah, well, we're not a welfare state, though. We give more than we get.
So does Texas.
Yeah.
Texas does as well. Okay.
Yeah.
Sure. Yeah, that's the way it is for. Well, I think really, depending on how you do the math, it's like that everywhere. Maybe New Mexico, I don't know, but
yeah.
But the United States government doesn't seem likely to be happy with any of us leaving, so they must think they're getting more money out of us.
Yeah.
Or maybe it's a control thing. Like sometimes I think like it makes sense to follow the money. Money obviously has some impact, but I think it goes beyond that.
Yeah. There's lots of factors.
And also, once one state does it, it kind of opens the floodgates, right? Then it's like, well, if Texas did it, then and Texas is doing pretty good. Like, why wouldn't we do it?
Explode. They didn't die.
Yeah,
immediately.
It opens up that question because there are so many people who are like, it's impossible. How would you? I mean, we had one gentleman call into the show one night that was literally like, you guys aren't going to have any electricity, any water.
Yeah.
He thought that we would just
be cut off.
Yeah, he thought we would just have nothing. And it's like, well, first of all, most of those things are provided by the state.
Yeah.
And second of all, I mean, you think that we couldn't figure it out?
Yeah.
I mean, it can't be that complicated.
Like 1.5 million people, I think. Well,
I always like to tell people that we'll probably be better off than Haiti the day after we leave. Right? There's a whole lot of countries that are a lot poorer than New Hampshire will be.
Absolutely.
What did you have to share, Russell?
So just this afternoon, we have 2 bills that we're trying to get passed in New Hampshire related to secession. So there's the CACR 20, which is the Jason Gerhard's thing where it would change the Constitution to say we would leave if the U.S. debt gets over $40 trillion, and then that would have to be voted on by the people.
Yep.
Which is
and then
great.
The other one,
I just like the trigger in that bill instead of it just being like, it gives people more to think about. I think.
Oh yeah,
I just love it.
It really does. And plus, the people of New Hampshire get to vote on whether to leave or not.
Yep.
And then the other one, of course, it leads to even more discussion because the other one is HB House Bill 1130, which proposes that we have a study committee. Because 2 years ago, some of the Republicans said they didn't want to vote for this until we should have done a study committee first. So this would initiate a study committee. Which would study it for a few months.
And it'll answer so many people's questions once they're done with that.
Oh, yeah.
So both of these bills are going to be heard in the State Federal Relations Committee on January 12th at 9:30 and 10:15 in the morning. That just happened this afternoon. So we know what day the meeting is.
Yep, they're 45 minutes apart, which I really don't believe that the secession one will only take 45 minutes. I'm going to try to get as many people there as possible. I know me and my brother, I'm going to drag my brother along to it.
Excellent.
And I'm not sure if he'll be able to testify. Will they know he's not from New Hampshire? No, they don't ask. He can testify.
You just told him.
That doesn't matter.
Yeah.
You could have somebody from Vermont there saying they don't like the idea. I mean, I don't know if it really matters.
Yeah.
Also, now that it's got a date and time, you can go online to the state's website and do your own online response.
Oh,
now
nice.
that it has it pops up in the drop-down menu now that it's got a time. So
I wonder
people
how much
can do
it
that from anywhere they are.
I mean, I don't you think that probably matters a little less than doing it in person? I think going in person makes a bigger impact. You get your 3 minutes, I think, and it's a real human standing in front of them.
It's still good for people who can't make it to have the option. Yeah, I think in person is always best, but if you can't make it, that is.
I just don't want to give people like that out, like, oh, if you can't make it because you don't feel like it, then just do it online, because it's not the same.
Oh, you got to be in front of these people so
Just
they
don't
know
think it's the
they're
same.
real supporters of this thing.
You need eye contact.
And the thing is, like, the CACR 32, the one that was very similar, that would have just had us constitutionally amend the Constitution, that was, its hearing was January 2022, I believe. Well, that one had a packed room.
Yeah, we had a lot of people.
bigger
And
room
that
than normal.
definitely, even just having that many people, at that point, it almost, not that it doesn't matter what you say, but
Makes
having
its own statement.
Exactly. Having that many people who care this much about it, pack that room. I think they need to move it to a bigger room.
Yeah.
Like it was a whole thing. So that in and of itself like says a lot.
Yeah.
It seems like when we get to the point where we're actually getting close to secession, these kinds of meetings will be so huge. Have you ever heard in New Hampshire, sometimes they'll do one, like especially if it's a homeschool related one, and they'll have so many people show up, they have to do it in the big room that fits 300-400 people.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Nice.
But yeah, it's a topic
like
that some people care about. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and with this, hopefully we'll be bigger than last time. So, and it seems like with some of them, because the committee's half Democrat, half Republican, and as far as I know, last time all the Republicans were against it. So, and then sometimes they ask questions too. So if you go and do your talk, they'll ask you questions too. So hopefully we can flesh out a lot of discussion. We'll see.
So that's CACR 20 and HB 640?
The one I know about is HB 1130.
1130. Oh, 640 was something else.
HB 640 might be a nullification related type thing.
Sorry, that was actually that one is regarding decentralized autonomous organizations being able to make a legal entity in New Hampshire, which actually passed, and I'm a little confused about it. It's like, don't they want to be decentralized?
Yeah.
It's a little weird.
Confusing.
Like, I guess if you really need a bank account for your DAO, then it's nice that they have the option, but you're not a DAO anymore.
Yeah.
Anyway, sorry about that. I just want to look that one up today. So HB 1130 and then CACR 20, and it's going to be January 12th at 9:30 for the CACR and 12:15 for the other one. And thanks for the reminder.
It says 10:15, but I don't know when it'll actually be.
10:15. Sorry, I knew that when I wrote down because
that's where you got the 45 minutes. But I bet now, since you guys were there last time, I bet it lasted more than 45 minutes last time.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
Like an hour and a half, maybe.
Yeah, I don't even remember, but yeah, it took a long time because not every single person that showed up spoke. But most of them, I mean, it's a room full of libertarians. They all want their 3 minutes.
Oh yeah, we do like to talk about philosophy and liberty and all this stuff. So,
but it was great. I mean, there were so many people that were so well spoken, and they said things that were really thoughtful. And then, of course, you have like the jokesters who just want to make some sort of statement or kind of make a scene or whatever, which is also cool, whatever. But I was very impressed by a lot of the like really well thought out. I mean, some people had written things out on paper, and it was really. It was awesome.
And you don't have to do that. Like, you can just go up there and say a sentence. Like, so many people just have this writing block about, like, oh, my friend's in prison, but I don't know what to say. I'm not trying to really be mean. It's just a little frustrating. It's like, what do you mean? Like, what do you talk about with your friends? Just write it, you know?
Yeah, just say anything.
What do you think about this bill?
Yeah.
Just write it.
And that's the
then
thing.
Just go say it.
Yeah, it doesn't have to be. You know, if you're very literate and you're well thought out, well-spoken person, that's fabulous. But it doesn't have to be that. You can just say, like, this is, I believe in this, and this is why. It can be very simple. It doesn't have to take 3 minutes. You can take 30 seconds. And I get it. Some people have stage fright and they can't do public speaking, and I respect that as well. But
a disrespect. Well, anything else for us, Russell?
No, thanks for taking my call.
Thank you so much for the reminder. I definitely want to keep talking about that every day on the show, and I'm going to probably go on the Keen chat we have here on Telegram and Matrix and tell people, like, if you need a ride, I'll start figuring that out now. Ian was all interested in it, so when I saw that those dates and times were posted today, I texted him immediately, and I told him I was going to go, and he was like, oh, that's wonderful, Bonnie. Like, he acts like I'm doing it for him, but no, I wanted to go.
Yeah. What are the dates again?
It's January 12th, 9:30 and 10:15 a.m.
Okay.
And it's going to be at the LOB, the Legislative Office Building.
Oh, so it's not at the State House?
Yeah, it is the State House, but I think that's either the same thing or another part of it.
Oh, okay.
The LOB, the Legislative Office Building. So, in the last segment, we were talking about the fact that a lot fewer people are using social media, at least to post anymore. And I think it's kind of an interesting topic. We've barely gotten through any of this article, and we had so much to say about it because, well, social media really affects everyone's lives so much. And I think it's really interesting that social media is not cool anymore. And I think it's a good thing.
I think it's really interesting, too, because, things come and go, and it's social media's time to come and go.
That's so true. Like, it seemed like something that, like, maybe like 10 years ago, no one would believe you that young people were uninterested in social media.
Yeah.
And that's not 100% true. Like, young people are more interested in stuff like TikToks where they just sit there and watch stuff. They're just less interested in posting. And I would love to see the internet go back to more like websites. Like, just yesterday, I visited a website that was all like these psychics conversations with dead people that they post there. And I was like, I'm on an actual website. Like, I'm not on this psychic's Instagram. I'm not on this psychic's Facebook. I'm on a website. And I feel like that's just like rare for me.
Yeah.
I'm usually, when I'm on the internet, on a social media platform. You start to feel like that is the internet. And it's a little weird. It would be cooler if it wasn't that way. And things were more decentralized and customizable. I mean, I don't know how to do coding to like make my own website, but some people do, and the internet could be more fun that way. It says here, David Kennedy, I already told you guys about him. He's the aspiring model.
Mm-hmm.
He says, it can feel kind of lonely sometimes. If you're not seeing what your friends are posting, it feels kind of like you're living in an isolated world. And wow, he put that makes a lot of sense. He's talking about going on Instagram, you post, but you don't see any of your friends' posts. You only see a bunch of reels. That does feel isolating.
Yeah.
That makes a lot of sense. I hadn't really thought of it that way, but a lot of social media, I feel like the whole point is to isolate people because, like, I almost said, we're more connected, but really, are we? Like, I don't think
really.
we are.
I mean, social media is great for posting updates, but at some point, everyone's going to become either passive-aggressive or passive and just consume content. But at the same time, it's nice to be connected and see what people are up to, but we're also really disconnected because we don't see each other. We don't see each other's vulnerability. We see each other's good or bad, and it's not healthy.
Well, it's very surface level.
Oh, yeah.
Right? It's not deep at all.
And you don't have the ability to feel their 6-foot biofield, as Angie from our Sunday show was bringing up about COVID. She was saying COVID was mainly employed to separate people, and she said apparently people have a biofield, an energetic field around them that's about 6 feet from their center.
I heard her say that, yeah.
And it makes a lot of sense that they would tell us to stay 6 feet away because of that. In a survey conducted in the U.S. this summer, research firm Gartner found more than half of respondents believe the quality of social media has declined in the past 5 years. They cited misinformation, toxicity, and the proliferation of bots as reasons it has gotten worse. And oh my gosh, the naked lady bots on Twitter are terrible. They're bad.
Oh yeah, like the like OnlyFans ones, the ones that are like trying to scam people.
Yeah,
like the fake. Yeah,
I think it is fake OnlyFans.
That is the majority of the. But it's always been like that, right? When you like go to like, I remember in the days of LimeWire, it was always like fake porn or what is it like? Oh, there's local like hot Asians in your area, and I'm like, no, there's not. There's no Asians in my area, you liar. Like
this is it's gotten like 10 times worse, and this is the only thing I noticed about Twitter that was so different when Elon Musk took over. People were saying like it's gotten into a right-wing cesspool. I didn't notice that, but you tweet something on Twitter, 3 likes appear at once, and you're like, what the? Who liked it? So, and then you go look at him, and it's like Jessica, obviously fake person with OnlyFans links sometimes, and it's just like you will get like 10 of those a day if you tweet a couple times, and it's gotten really bad.
Oh,
like it's like it makes things unfun because you're like, oh, I have notification. It's a stupid bikini girl.
It's a dopamine hit that doesn't really pan out.
No follow through.
Yeah.
So I could totally see that as being an annoying thing. It's just annoying. It also makes it feel more like you're in the ghetto of the internet, which I just hate that feeling the most.
It does, and that's why I brought up LimeWire, because it's like, oh, like, you know, you're doing something illegal or whatever. You know, like it does feel like, you know, if this was a nice platform, there wouldn't be all these fake bikini girls trying to get me to follow their nudie websites.
Porn commercials on the side.
Yeah, it's like, oh my gosh.
Says ads and suggested posts have also sucked the joy out of apps, some users say. And that's exactly what you were talking about, the suggested posts. Those get so annoying. Oh, you should follow this girl that you would never even choose to talk to in real life.
Yeah.
Like, why? Meta responded to user complaints saying it would continue to work on improving recommendations to help creators reach more people. The company added a snooze button that pauses suggested posts for 30 days at a time.
I didn't know that.
Me either. And chronological feeds that temporarily only show posts from people that you follow. And that's basically all that's really important about the article. We could go on, but I think we said mostly all we really wanted to say about social media, which I feel like we had a lot to say about it. It affects our lives a lot, as we have said. And it's just interesting to me. I'm glad that there's an article about social media becoming less cool, because I'm becoming more and more of an introvert. Like when I was a high schooler, the only thing I loved about high school was going there to talk to all my friends. Like I loved to talk to people, and then all of a sudden it's like I got my husband, and it's not like that was my only aim of talking to people was to get married or something, but I found somebody that like I could talk to only him all day, and I became so much more of an introvert. So, but I'm pointing that out, but at the same time, I do have this belief that people kind of need to connect again. Like you'll be less dependent on the government if you're connecting with everyone around you.
Sure, and you'll become less dependent on your dopamine hits if you're becoming more connected with everyone around you. I mean, that's healthy.
That's something we really didn't get into at all. It is an addiction, I believe.
Yeah.
Because anything that you know you really shouldn't be doing, but you're doing, it can be an addiction. Because your brain is making these chemicals, and you're getting addicted to the chemicals your brain makes. And that's why I don't fall for it when people say, like, marijuana is not addictive at all. I'm not saying, like, it's bad. Like, caffeine's addictive, too. And I drank caffeine today.
Marijuana, caffeine, these are all addictive. But marijuana's, psychologically and behaviorally addictive rather than chemically. I mean, you may have some chemical withdrawals after stopping marijuana, or if you take a lot of marijuana, you might get something like hypercannabinoid syndrome or something like that. That's just building up all this cannabis in your body, and your body's trying to flush it out, but it's struggling, and so you might get really sick. That happens.
Wow, I've never heard of that, actually.
Yeah, it's I wouldn't say it's common, but it's getting more and more common as we get higher and higher levels of cannabis products.
Oh, yeah, I'm sure.
And since cannabis is fat soluble, it takes a while to get out, so you gotta moderate your use of cannabis.
Wow, that's really interesting. 603-283-6160. What do you think about all this? Are you addicted to social media? 603-283-6160. It's Free Talk Live. More coming up.
Join liberty-minded voluntarists, anarchists, and libertarians from June 13th through the 16th for the 8th annual Fork Fest at Rogers Campground in the beautiful White Mountains of New Hampshire. Forkfest is a fork of the Porcupine Freedom Festival, which has sold out in recent years. Forkfest happens the weekend before the Porcupine Freedom Festival. Forkfest is decentralized, which means that there's no ticket cost and no one is in charge. All you have to do to join the fun is reserve your camping site, RV site, or motel room with Rogers Campground for June 13th through the 16th. You can find out more at the unofficial website, forkfest.party. You can also connect with other attendees on the Forkfest Telegram and Matrix chat rooms, as well as the Forkfest forum. You can find links to those at forkfest.party. We hope to see you there June 13th through the 16th. Forkfest.party.
From Feature Story News in Washington, I'm Caroline Malone. The United Nations has warned that the death of Hamas deputy chief Salah al-Rouri may escalate conflict in the Middle East. William Denslow reports from the UN headquarters in New York.
A spokesperson for the UN's mission in Lebanon says the Beirut attack could have devastating consequences on both sides of the border between Lebanon and Israel. Hamas has described it as a terrorist act, and its ally Hezbollah says it was an attack on Lebanon's sovereignty. Israel, without claiming responsibility, insists it was not an attack on Lebanon. As the conflict between Hamas and Israel continues, the UN has raised concerns over the risk of regional spillover. UN Secretary-General Antonio Guterres has called on all parties to exercise maximum restraint, implement a ceasefire and de-escalate tensions. William Denslow, New York.
A 10-year-old boy has been arrested on suspicion of killing another child with his father's gun in the US state of California. Police found the 10-year-old boy bleeding in a parking lot, and he was later pronounced dead at the hospital. The suspect was allegedly angry after losing an informal bike race. His father has also been booked on suspicion of possession of a firearm by a felon, child endangerment, and acting as an accessory to a crime. US correspondent Kate Fisher reports.
According to the sheriff's office, the boy had gone out to his father's truck to get him cigarettes when he found a loaded gun. The victim had been riding his bike when the boy bragged that his father had a gun and then shot him once before running into a nearby apartment. The suspect's father was arrested on suspicion of carrying a stolen and loaded firearm in a vehicle, child endangerment, and being an accessory to a crime after the fact. Kate Fisher, Washington.
Junior doctors in England have started the new year with 6 days of industrial action in a long-running dispute over pay. If it continues as planned, it will be the longest strike by doctors in National Health Service history. Stuart Smith reports from outside University College Hospital in London.
Last year, they already managed to agree a 9% pay rise, and at the end of last year, they were negotiating with the government about boosting that by 3% more, but it's of course far short of what they would like of 35%. Now, junior doctors in Scotland did manage to negotiate a 17% rise, making the argument that the cost of living crisis, inflation and a lack of pay rises over the last decade meant that that figure was deserved. But in the meantime, junior doctors say they will strike until the government starts to make them a, quote, credible offer. They make up around half of the workforce in the NHS, and so it's having big impacts and will have big impacts on the availability of non-urgent operations.
We're still not sure why you'd want to watch, but our video feed is streaming nightly for free at cam.freetalklive.com.
It's Free Talk Live. It's talk radio that you control. 603-283-6160. That's 603-283-6160. And with you in the studio tonight, you've got me, Bonnie,
Riley,
and Nikki.
And I want to tell you about Forkfest 2024. Join liberty-minded voluntarists, anarchists, and libertarians from June 13th through the 16th for the 8th annual Forkfest at Rogers Campground in the beautiful White Mountains of New Hampshire. Forkfest is a fork of the Porcupine Freedom Festival, which has sold out in recent years. Forkfest happens the weekend before the Porcupine Freedom Festival. Forkfest is decentralized, which means that there's no ticket cost and no one is in charge. All you have to do to join the fun is reserve your camping site, RV site, or motel room with Rogers Campground for June 13th through the 16th. You can find out more at the unofficial website forkfest.party. You can also connect with other attendees on the Forkfest Telegram and Matrix chat rooms, as well as the Forkfest forum. You can find links to those at forkfest.party. We hope to see you there June 13th through the 16th. Forkfest.party. And did I already say who was in the studio with us tonight? All right. It's me, Riley, and Nikki.
And the number is 603-283-6160.
Thank you. And you can call in and bring up whatever is on your mind. It doesn't matter if it's on topic. It doesn't matter if you want to change the subject. You can bring up whatever's on your mind.
Yeah.
Riley, you brought in this article from Psychology Today. It says the infant brain's capability of conscious experiences. Does consciousness begin before birth, during birth, or shortly after? Before we get into it, what do you guys think?
I think there's got to be some level of consciousness before birth, as the brain develops, as the body develops. I mean, we're not going to remember what it was like inside the womb verbally, but we may remember it emotionally. And, you know, psychedelic experiences, you might be able to bring that memory to the surface emotionally and have a death rebirth experience or whatever. But I think there's a level of consciousness at some point before birth.
I think it's even before that.
Oh.
Like you've always been, but now you're reincarnating.
Yeah.
And I would have to agree that you never didn't exist. That's how I agree with that as well. But as far as like how conscious are you of your body and what's going on right now, I think that it probably shuts off and then becomes slowly and slowly more conscious as you're growing in your mother's womb. And I have heard stories of people who have said, like, not that they remember being in there, like, just like you remember yesterday, but something happens to them, like they go to therapy about it or whatever. Like this one girl, I heard this story, I don't even know where at this point. Well, I know, it was in Deep Nutrition by Dr. Kate Callahan. She said that there was this lady she met whose parents had divorced when she was, her mom got cheated on while her mom was pregnant with her. And she almost died because the pain and like suffering and stress her mom was going through affected her so much. And she had a near-death experience in the womb. I think
crazy.
It was in Deep Nutrition.
I totally believe that. I've read that book and I don't remember that. So maybe it was a different book. I do still highly recommend that book though. Deep Nutrition is an excellent book.
It also talks about like development in the womb, so maybe that's why I thought that.
But there is like actual data to show that babies born to depressed women have higher levels of respiratory depression and needing to be resuscitated at the time of birth because they're constantly being affected by everything a pregnant woman feels, says.
That's really interesting.
You know what I mean?
And it's like, how could you be affected by someone's emotions if you're not conscious at all?
Exactly. So it's like, if my mom, while I'm in the womb, is so depressed and has like very low will to live, why would I have it's like, okay, you just have been programming me because babies don't speak English yet, right? So like it's like animals, right? So it's like they're very like primitive and it's like all in like feelings. It's all in energy with babies. So even in the womb, it's like, if I'm constantly being sent messages like it's dangerous out here, I'm stressed out, I'm depressed, you know what I mean? If those are the messages that the baby's constantly getting, why would they want to come into this world? So that's just my theory on it. But
it's just interesting to me that, you know, here we are talking about memory and how that affects us. And I'm wondering, how do we make these memories more conscious in ourselves so we can work through them and pass through them and become healthier individuals? I think the biggest thing for me, at least in my experience, has been ayahuasca and mushrooms and things like that.
I think there's a lot of stuff we're not supposed to remember.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I do think past life regression can be valuable in certain circumstances, but I also feel like we're in the here and now, and that was in the past. Unless there's something in your life that is being disrupted by something that happened in a past life, I think we should leave it alone. But if someone is going through a struggle, and they think it's linked to something like nothing in their life, like it doesn't make sense where this is coming from. I've seen past life regression, like hypnosis type sessions, really help people overcome those hurdles. I also really quickly wanted to plug this book, Spirit Babies, How to Connect with the Child You're Meant to Have, by Walter. This is a weird text, so I can't really...
They could probably find it with that title.
Yeah. It's the only book with that title. But that is, even if you're not like, even if you're not trying to have babies or whatever, it's a very interesting read, especially if you're into clairvoyant stuff or the topic that we're talking about right now. Really, really interesting book. I highly recommend it. It's fascinating. And it links up a lot with things that mediums in my life have also said. Like there's a lot of overlap there, or like some of the books, you were just talking about it, the past life
near death
thing. Yeah, like near death experiences. It all links up and overlaps with a lot of those concepts.
Interesting.
I really enjoyed that book, but it goes into a lot of this of like, when does consciousness develop? And the other thing that's really cool is in this book they talk about it, but also someone personally in my life has had an experience like this where somebody is already pregnant. So like the conception already happened. There's already a baby developing there. But someone, a medium, was able to connect with that baby's spirit.
Oh, interesting.
So it is kind of interesting. And it does kind of like beg the question, like, I think there's spirits there, but like, is their spirit implanted into the actual fetus developing in the womb yet? And if it's not, like, when does it come into body? Because a lot of midwives and doulas will say, like, people who work very intimately in the natural birth sphere, you can tell, like, when you're at a birth, especially like a natural non-medical birth, you can tell it's like God is in the room. You know what I mean? And it's not only like, it's like a real emergence of like that physical human being, but you also like, it's an emergence of a soul.
Yeah.
And it does feel like sometimes like somebody has a baby and you can tell that their soul isn't in there yet. And then when the soul enters the body, you can tell. And also like on the complete opposite spectrum, when I've worked in hospice situations or when I have been present for someone dying, whether if they were on hospice care or whether it was a failed resuscitation attempt, you can see, and to me, like, you're not physically seeing their soul leaving their body, but you can tell when the lights turn off. You know what I mean?
That sounds so true to me. Like I haven't been in that situation, but I just heard someone yesterday talking on a podcast that Angie recommended to me called Let's Talk Near Death. I forgot his name, but he had a partner of like 10 years and she was a psychic, and he has friends that are psychics, but he's not a psychic. And his partner died, and he said he just knew she was gone like 10 hours before her body expired, he said.
Yeah.
And then his psychic friend got to communicate with her and have a conversation with him, but it was really her. And he asked her that question. She was like, yeah, I did, because I just couldn't stand to be in that situation with you being so sad and you seeing me like that anymore. So I decided to leave so you would be able to get over it faster, something like that.
Interesting.
Yeah.
And there's plenty of stories about people who had near-death experiences, or they went and talked to God or whatever, where it's been revealed to them that, like, oh, your child died in a really traumatic thing that you are worried and anxious and like, oh my God, I hope they didn't suffer. Well, like their soul was taken out before they could suffer. And I really hope that that's true.
Yeah. At the very least, it brings peace to a lot of people.
Yeah. Well, let's get into this article. It's from Psychology Today. And it says, does consciousness begin before birth, during birth, or shortly after? It says, when does consciousness begin? There is evidence that some form of consciousness conscious experience is present by birth and perhaps even in late pregnancy. An international team of researchers led by my colleague Tim Bain and I have concluded in a new review manuscript. And I means not me, but Joel Froelich, PhD. The findings recently published in the peer-reviewed journal Trends in Cognitive Science have important clinical, ethical, and potentially legal implications. In the study entitled Consciousness in the Cradle on the Emergence of Infant Experience, we argue that by birth, the infant's developing brain is likely capable of conscious experiences. Although each of us was once a baby, infant consciousness remains mysterious because infants cannot tell us what they think or feel. According to my colleague Dr. Tim Bain, professor of psychology at Monash University, nearly everyone who has held a newborn infant has wondered what, if anything, it is like to be a baby. But, of course, we cannot remember our infancy, and consciousness researchers have disagreed on whether consciousness arises early, at birth or shortly after, or late, by 1 year of age or even much later. And I definitely remember partially being a baby. And my friend, who is 62 now, she remembers her having her diaper changed. I don't remember that specifically.
Wow.
But
that's going way back.
Yeah,
I do not remember anything. I think my earliest memory, I'm probably around 2 years old.
I have memories where I'm in a cradle. So I was having a dream. I was laying on my side wondering what the heck my heartbeat was. What's that drumming sound? And then I started having a dream about these elves marching towards me. And I was in a cradle, like not even a baby bed, like one step earlier than that. Yeah,
like a bassinet.
Yeah.
Whoa, really? So you were like a young infant.
Yep.
Because probably you're out of a bassinet. I don't know what the weight capacity on, like, you know what I mean? Like probably younger than 18 months, I'd say. Like definitely younger than 2 years old. Absolutely.
And I didn't think it was coming from my ear. I was so young, it was so abstract. I was like, what's that noise?
Cool.
I've heard it before. What's that noise?
Fascinating.
That's really cool that you remember that.
That's like the earliest thing. And then I also have memories of, like, I lived in Alaska until I was 3, but I have memories of all kinds of different things from that time, like this mat on the floor I'd crawl up to, my mom dragging me behind her in a sled and stuff like that. But I'm pretty sure that the thing I just told you is the earliest memory I have. And I would think having a dream is kind of like you are conscious. You're having a dream.
Yeah.
Or even a memory. Like if you have a memory, like you have to be conscious, right?
Absolutely. Oh, absolutely.
It says, to provide a new perspective on when consciousness first emerges, we reviewed recent advances in consciousness science. And Riley, do you remember anything from being a baby?
It's hard to say. I don't remember much from being a baby that I can think of off the top of my head right now.
It says, in adults, some markers from brain imaging have been found to reliably differentiate consciousness from its absence and are increasingly applied in science and medicine. That's interesting. This is the first time that these advances, as translated to infants, have been reviewed in detail. My co-author, and again, that's the writer of this article I'm reading, not me, Dr. Lorena Nassi, Associate Professor at Trinity College Dublin in Ireland, who leads the Consciousness and Cognition Group, explained, our findings suggest that newborns can integrate sensory and developing cognitive responses into coherent conscious experiences to understand the actions of others and plan their own responses. It is even possible that birth itself triggers the onset of consciousness. And I have thought of that before. I mean, I told you the story about the girl who had a near-death experience in the womb, she says.
Yeah.
But sometimes I wonder if birth triggers your consciousness because, like, why does your birthday have so much to do with your life? I believe it does. I know some people are like, oh, well, because it doesn't.
Oh, yeah, like in terms of, like, astrology?
Yeah, why would that be more important than, like, 3 days after
like
you were
your
conceived?
Conception? Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
It's entirely possible that our birth experience might be very traumatic because here we are going from a really warm, comfortable place in our mommy's tummy, in our mommy's womb, and then, boom, we're pushed out in the world.
Yeah, absolutely. That is an incredibly formative experience, and most of us don't remember it in our thinking brain.
Yeah.
But a lot that happens to you during birth is absolutely imprinted, and even like a lot of like they say the first 3 years of your life are like the most formative years, which you may be like, that's crazy. I don't even remember anything before I'm 3. A lot of people don't, but that doesn't mean that those things that you can't remember, like they still left an imprint on your body. They still left an imprint on your emotional and your emotional like processing capabilities. I think there's so much. I think the stuff we don't remember affects us more than the stuff we remember sometimes, honestly.
So my mom actually told me that when I came out of her, I did not cry at all.
Wow. Did they have to like spank you and make you? I hate that. I mean, I guess it's necessary.
Yeah, well, they don't have to do that, but
I had an experience with cannabis once where I saw my birth experience, but I was off to the side. So I'm wondering if part of my spirit or my spirit was off to the side when I came out of my mom's tummy, and then when they spanked me, it just went back in.
Whoa,
that is possible.
It's an interesting thought.
It is really interesting to think, though. That's interesting.
Really interesting if babies aren't just stuck inside their mom for 9 months.
Yeah.
If they are like floating all around, looking around.
Yeah.
Looking at their dads and stuff. That's crazy. And really interesting. But I'm trying to remember exactly where it was.
I also, just really quick, I just thought of something. So when babies, so at a certain point, they can hear while they're in the womb.
Mm-hmm.
And somehow people have been able to test this. But you can tell when a baby's born and their father speaks, they will turn their head, and you can, and it's different than if there's like some random nurse in the room that they've never heard before.
Yeah.
They won't be as interested, but they are very interested in listening to their father speak. And that's why like the skin to skin with the father, like not like immediately after birth, typically it's with the mother, but like shortly after, like once mom needs a break or whatever, then we'll do skin to skin with dad on the chest. And that is a really important moment for that father-baby connection. And babies absolutely know their fathers.
That's crazy.
Because, like, of course, your mother, you were inside of her and whatever.
Yep.
But they also know their fathers. And there's also been some research done that in instances where babies are being resuscitated, they want the fathers to talk to the babies during the resuscitation process, and she'd be like, "Hi, baby," like it doesn't have to be anything like crazy, just like, "Hi, baby, oh, I'm so happy you're here," like just whatever.
That's cool
because they notice that when the father like enters the room or a father comes home from work or something like that, the mother's heart rate increases, and the baby knows mom likes him.
Wow,
like she's getting excited that he's here now, like that he makes her happy.
Aww.
Hopefully, obviously not everybody has a relationship like that, or not everybody has, like a baby daddy like that. But generally speaking, that is the case. And they've done all sorts of research regarding these topics, but it's just fascinating. And when you think about that, it's like, well, they have to at least be in there consciously some part of the time. Maybe there's different pieces and aspects of the soul, and maybe some of it's there, but some of it's elsewhere. I mean, it's just, we really don't know.
Yeah, and it's fascinating. Like, thank you for sharing that, Riley. It's so interesting.
Yeah.
It looks like we do have a caller on the line, though, so I'm going to go to the phones. Dave Ridley in New Hampshire, you're on Free Talk Live. What's in your mind?
Yeah, is it okay to talk about myself?
Yeah, you can change the subject.
Sure.
That's the show.
Yeah, I know. I managed to call you right in the middle of hiccups, so this is not going to.
Oh no!
Anyway, thanks to our mutual friend Chris Wade over at thinkpenguin.com, I have been on our Ridley rampage. He's one of my advertisers, so one of the things I did that kind of gave me an epiphany. I went to Keene City Hall, and I have this little. This alternate pledge of allegiance that I say that I just got off of Facebook, basically.
Yep.
And so when you get to the part, you get about a third of the way through the pledge. I just say it in unison with everyone else, and I say one empire under fraud, completely visible, with lying and spying on all. And
completely
I say it kind of
loud.
I like it. I like it.
I say it a little louder than you're supposed to. So. Of course, people really hate that, and then I'll just get video of how they react. In this case, I saw more angry faces than I've ever seen at Keene City Council.
That's
I don't
funny.
think I've ever done this at Keene City Council before. But I've done it a bunch of other places. But it gave me this idea. I got video of it. You can see it on the channel. But it gave me this idea. Actually, maybe, Buckminster Fuller used to say, you're really better off, instead of complaining about something, you're better off providing an alternative. So I think it actually might be better to say, like a sort of to make a Pledge of Allegiance more like to New Hampshire, and sort of say that. Although I'm not in favor of pledging allegiance to New Hampshire per se, but
sure.
I thought about maybe. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I was just going to say I'm not in favor of pledging allegiance to any government system, state, or whatever. So, yeah, I agree with you on that.
Yeah, I agree. So I thought it might be appropriate to say something like, I pledge goodwill to the independence of the sovereign state of New Hampshire and peaceable resistance against, the federal government or something like that. I don't know what else I would say, but I'm working on it. I'm working on a better pledge. I asked an AI to write one for me, and it refused.
Really?
Oh, wow.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
That's hilarious.
It was Microsoft. It was a Microsoft Copilot. I asked it. It said, "Well, I am as a large language model, I am not qualified to write something so patriotic and solemn." Well, why don't you just try?
That's so silly.
That's so weird because they'll do pretty much anything you tell them to, right?
I've run into some things they'll refuse. Like I was like, tell me what you would say in court if you're fighting a traffic ticket. And it's like, I can't do that.
I mean, that does sound a little bit more complex, but right that, they clearly an AI knows their regular Pledge of Allegiance, right?
It'll say
come
it
up
can't
with
because
your own.
They'll it's not that it's like, I can't think that way. Or I can't do that. It's they were programmed not to do it because their programmers don't want them to do something offensive or give you legal advice.
Yeah, right, that does make sense.
The AI can only be...
That is dumb.
Can only function as far as it's programmed now. But
yeah.
Who knows? In a year or 2 or 3 or 4 or 5, that might change.
Hopefully after I'm dead. Well, Dave Ridley.
If you never know what to do with the Pledge of Allegiance, this is always what I've been really happy with. I just love saying my version instead of theirs.
Did anyone say anything to you?
No, I just got a lot of dirty looks, and a bunch of people are going to probably not talk to me next time I go to Teen City Council.
I do like yours better, though. Yeah. I mean, it's pretty accurate.
If you get like a whole crowd there, that would be pretty good. With and we overpower them. Oh, that'd be awesome.
Oh, and the existing the one that I use from Facebook, I did post a copy of the full text right there. It's just at RidleyReport.com. It's probably the most recent video, and so you can find it, and then you can read it at your next city council meeting.
That's awesome.
All right.
So RidleyReport.com. Thank you so much for the call, Ridley. You can find his videos on BitChute and Odyssey and now YouTube again because he was kicked off for a while. Well, he was never kicked off, but he was stepped away from it so that way he wouldn't get kicked off.
Yeah.
But since he stopped having so many strikes, he's back on YouTube now. Dave Ridley of RidleyReport.com.
He does great work.
Yes, he does. I really appreciate his videos. 603-283-6160. It's Free Talk Live. You can call in with whatever's on your mind. More coming up.
We have some good news. The indictments against Ross Ulbricht in the District of Maryland were dismissed with prejudice, meaning they can never be refiled. This is especially good because those indictments contain the only charge ever made that Ross engaged in murder for hire. This was a serious allegation that Ross Ulbricht denies. It was never prosecuted or ruled on by a jury, but was trumpeted by the federal government and the media as if it were proven fact. The Maryland court held these indictments for almost 5 years, poisoning Ross's case and leaving him under a cloud of unproven allegations. As explained in Ross's appeal to the Supreme Court, the fact that the judge used these allegations to give Ross a draconian sentence of double life without parole violated his Sixth Amendment right to a jury trial. Judges are required to issue sentences based on convictions decided by a jury, not unproven allegations never even charged at trial. Although this is a positive development, the dropped indictment will not set Ross free. Now, a presidential pardon is Ross's only hope of freedom. Sign the petition at freeross.org. freeross.org.
There are basically 2 types of advertising, direct response and branding. Radio's great for direct response with its low cost to listener ratio, but audio can't be beat for branding, which is a longer term endeavor. You want to be the first thing that someone thinks of when they think about your product or service. If you have a local business that you want kept top of mind in your community, call the station. If you need national reach, Free Talk Live's got around 200 radio stations, millions of monthly listening sessions, can suit all budgets, and if we don't think we're right for you, we'll tell you. Email me, Mark at freetalklive.com.
Tired of cancel culture? Sick of mega tech corporations holding an axe over your head? Join the LRN.FM Matrix chat server. It's self-hosted, so no one else can tell us what to do or say. Don't like the existing channels? You can make your own. You can even connect into some of our channels from other Matrix servers. It's federated. For the full LRN.FM Matrix experience, though, you should join our server via the step-by-step instructions at chat.lrn.fm. chat.lrn.fm.
You're listening to the live edition of Free Talk Live. Hour number 3 is next after the news here on the Liberty Radio Network at LRN.FM.
From Feature Story News in Washington, I'm Caroline Malone. The United Nations has warned that the death of Hamas deputy chief Salah al-Rouri may escalate conflict in the Middle East. William Denslow reports from the UN headquarters in New York.
A spokesperson for the UN's mission in Lebanon says the Beirut attack could have devastating consequences on both sides of the border between Lebanon and Israel. Hamas has described it as a terrorist act, and its ally Hezbollah says it was an attack on Lebanon's sovereignty. Israel, without claiming responsibility, insists it was not an attack on Lebanon. As the conflict between Hamas and Israel continues, the UN has raised concerns over the risk of regional spillover. UN Secretary-General Antonio Guterres has called on all parties to exercise maximum restraint, implement a ceasefire and de-escalate tensions. William Denslow, New York.
A 10-year-old boy has been arrested on suspicion of killing another child with his father's gun in the US state of California. Police found the 10-year-old boy bleeding in a parking lot, and he was later pronounced dead at the hospital. The suspect was allegedly angry after losing an informal bike race. His father has also been booked on suspicion of possession of a firearm by a felon, child endangerment, and acting as an accessory to a crime. US correspondent Kate Fisher reports.
According to the sheriff's office, the boy had gone out to his father's truck to get him cigarettes when he found a loaded gun. The victim had been riding his bike when the boy bragged that his father had a gun and then shot him once before running into a nearby apartment. The suspect's father was arrested on suspicion of carrying a stolen and loaded firearm in a vehicle, child endangerment, and being an accessory to a crime after the fact. Kate Fisher, Washington.
Junior doctors in England have started the new year with 6 days of industrial action in a long-running dispute over pay. If it continues as planned, it will be the longest strike by doctors in National Health Service history. Stuart Smith reports from outside University College Hospital in London.
Last year, they already managed to agree a 9% pay rise, and at the end of last year, they were negotiating with the government about boosting that by 3% more, but it's of course far short of what they would like of 35%. Now, junior doctors in Scotland did manage to negotiate a 17% rise, making the argument that the cost of living crisis, inflation and a lack of pay rises over the last decade meant that that figure was deserved. But in the meantime, junior doctors say they will strike until the government starts to make them a, quote, credible offer. They make up around half of the workforce in the NHS, and so it's having big impacts and will have big impacts on the availability of non-urgent operations.
From bureaus worldwide, this is FSN.
With FSN Spotlight, I'm Simon Marks. Today remembering Peter Magubane, the photographer who chronicled South Africa's apartheid regime. He died on Monday at the age of 91, and he was unequalled in terms of the quality of his visual images and the commitment he brought to their creation for more than 70 years. Magubane got his start on Drum magazine in the 1950s, a storied publication that chronicled apartheid's inequities. In the 1960s, he covered the government's crackdown on Nelson Mandela and other anti-apartheid luminaries and caught horrific images of both the Sharpeville massacre in 1960 and the Soweto uprising 16 years later. He was arrested often and spent 586 days in solitary confinement after his detention in 1969.
I was prepared to die for the cause of improving my country, to be able to document whatever I can about my country, send it overseas to be seen around the world. because keeping it in my country won't help me at all. But if it's seen around the world, then the people can begin to use power to change whatever is there.
Peter Magubani succeeded in that effort. His images shocked audiences worldwide and even today are a searing indictment of his own country's past. With FSN Spotlight, I'm Simon Marks.
And the main news again. The United Nations is concerned there may be an escalation in violence following the killing of a Hamas deputy chief in Lebanon. A 10-year-old has been arrested over the murder of another 10-year-old in the US state of California after allegedly shooting the other child with his father's gun. There's more from us on Twitter at Feature Story. And that's the latest from Feature Story News. Caroline Malone.
Japan grants suffrage to female robots. And a hypochondriac maple tree is always convinced it has Asian longhorn beetles. The following two statements are true. The previous statement is false, and this is the Onion Week in Review. This week, Americans nationwide were stunned to hear horrific allegations on Wall Street revealing that numerous junior bankers have been forced to survive on a mere $6,800 per week. The findings, which implicate numerous high-profile financial institutions such as Bank of America, Morgan Stanley, and Citibank, suggest that hundreds of first-year bankers are constantly deprived of basic necessities, including penthouse apartments overlooking Central Park and regular company-financed vacations to the French Riviera.
Many of these bankers are 23 or 24 years old and don't even have access to an expense account of over $50,000 a year. Not only that, but some of them are making as little as 20 times minimum wage. I mean, this is truly disgraceful.
This is the Onion News Network.
You can help spread the ideas of liberty with our Patreon for just $5 per month at amps.freetalklive.com. Free Talk Live.
It's Free Talk Live, talk radio that you control. And 603-283-6160 is the phone number here. That's 603-283-6160. And with you in the studio tonight, you've got me, Bonnie,
Riley,
and Nikki.
And I want to thank Duster, who's a silver level amplifier with us. Duster is giving at least $5 a month to the AMPS program, and that stands for Advertise, Market, Promote, and Support. So Duster is giving $5 a month to support Free Talk Live. And thank you so much, Duster. If you'd like to learn more about the AMPS program and sign up for yourself, you can go to amps.freetalklive.com. And thank you again, Duster, for supporting us. We really appreciate everyone who does.
Absolutely. Supporting Free Talk Live is extremely important this time around because we're basically in a time period where freedom of speech is not as free and easy to come by, so we're on the radio giving you the opportunity to speak your mind.
Yep. I really agree. It's like a more important time than normal.
Yep.
For standing up for freedom of speech. I mean, we're the only talk radio show like this at all.
We also are the only talk radio show on radio that has women as a panel. Like, I don't know of any other talk radio show on the radio that has a show where 3 women are hosting. And not to say that I'm a woman, but, you know, every other week we have Bonnie, Lori, and Nikki.
Yep.
And they're all women. And that's very rare in talk radio.
Oh, absolutely.
I never really thought about that. Like, I knew it's rare for Free Talk Live, but never really thought about it about radio specifically.
Talk radio is very male-centric, and it's just very unique that Free Talk Live has women hosts.
Yeah, it is definitely a very male-dominated industry. Yeah.
Well, in the last segment, what we do here is we bring up subjects we want to talk about, usually articles. But you can call in and bring up whatever is on your mind, and that's 603-283-6160. But in the last segment, we were reading this article that Riley brought in from Psychology Today, and it has sparked so many interesting conversations and thoughts within me, and this whole discussion with us three in the last segment. So continuing here, it says, they say it is, they're discussing, I didn't explain what the article was. Their question is, does consciousness begin before birth, during birth, or shortly after? And it's all about the infant's brain's capability of conscious experiences. They say that it is even possible that birth itself triggers the onset of consciousness. Perhaps the first thing the newborn infant realizes is that the outside world is very unpredictable relative to the womb's environment. Things are constantly changing, and so the newborn must build a mental model of the world to adapt and predict things. Maybe that's why they just close their eyes.
Yeah.
I feel like my friend just recently had a baby, and she had her eyes closed every time I would go to see her, and I first saw her the day after she was born, and I saw her pretty often, and her eyes were always closed, and my friend, she would talk about, like, oh, the baby's eye color, and I was like, does she, like, have her eyes open? And she would be like, yeah, she'll have her eyes open for
You're
all
like,
the
is
time.
she like
She's
a kitten where, like,
no,
her eyes are
that's what
closed?
I said. I was
Yeah.
like, honestly, I didn't think much about it. Like, I had 2 siblings that were born when I was a teenager, but I wasn't thinking about that.
Exactly.
Or I just forgot, I guess. So I was like, wait, okay, it seems like her eyes are always closed. Wow, I just realized, like, she opens her eyes. Because it's like 90% of the time they have their eyes closed.
Well, every baby has a different personality. So it's funny. Some babies will be born and then they're just like kind of looking around the room like very inquisitively.
Wow.
And it's like, wow, that baby is just like really soaking it all in. And then some babies are born and they're crying. Some babies are born and, like you said, like they just... and I think it depends on like the ambiance in the room too. They don't like bright lights. So if it's bright, you know, they'll more than likely have their eyes closed, and they do spend most of their time sleeping on and off. But yeah, it's interesting because even right when they're born, they have their own different personalities. And even, you know, women who have had multiple children. I mean, you know, Bonnie, your mother has had multiple children, so she might even be able to tell you different babies in utero will also have kind of different personalities where some of them move a lot, some of them don't, you know what I mean? So it's just, it's just really interesting.
And it's also interesting how somebody who's not talking can barely really move. Well, they move, but they're not like really in control of it. Their arms are like, they'll flail and stuff like that. Like they're not in good control of their body, can have a perceptible personality. Like my friend's baby is like 3 months old at this point and obviously has gone through so many different changes, but her like core personality we pointed out like on day 2 is still there. Like we'll be like, oh my God, she's so... I don't know how to explain it. She just is sassy. It's just a thing that was there even on day 2 that we're talking about, and it's still there.
Yeah.
Like, and that's something I was thinking of earlier that definitely makes me think like she's been conscious this whole time. It's not like she's just been unconscious and then one day it's gonna happen when she's 3 years old. I don't know. Maybe it happens different for different people.
I don't know, but they're not just like a blob.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like they are like they're already a human being.
So I know my girlfriend Alana can be kind of sassy.
I wonder if she's a sassy baby.
Yeah, I wonder. I'll have to ask.
That's funny. Maybe her mom would say that. That would be
probably.
so funny. It says, however, we don't rule out the possibility that consciousness might already start some weeks before birth. And it's a little weird. This article seems to be saying like, oh, only some weeks, like not the entire time.
Right.
But my co-author, the author of this article says, Dr. Julia Moser, currently at the University of Minnesota, has led work showing that third trimester fetuses appear to be capable of learning sequences of auditory beeps. When an auditory tone deviates from a pattern established earlier in the experiment, the fetus shows this surprise response in its magnetic brain activity. Wow. The neural activity shows a field deflection as if the fetus is saying, huh? That's crazy and so funny.
Yeah, that's really interesting.
It shows this picture here, which is worth pointing out, of it looks like a canyon and a sunrise and a river flowing through it. And it shows normal adult perception, like somebody with like 20/20 vision looking at that. And it shows the same thing mostly blurred out, with just like the darkest parts looking dark and the lightest parts of the sunset looking lighter. And it's this infant perception. It says, how we adults see the world is very different from how infants see the world. And I guess that makes sense because their eyes are developing from not having to look at anything for 9 months. I don't know how long the eyes are around, but some months.
Yeah, I think the basis of the eyes probably develop around like 8 weeks, maybe before that.
Our new paper also sheds light on what it is like to be a baby. We know that seeing is much more immature in babies than hearing, for example. Furthermore, this work suggests that at any point in time, infants are aware of fewer items than adults and can take longer to grasp what's in front of them. But they can easily process more diverse information, such as sounds from other languages, than their older selves. Infants can perceive many things that adults cannot, like the differences between vowel sounds in a foreign language. By 10 months or so, we lose this ability as the brain decides these perceptual differences are no longer relevant and discards them. Wow, that's crazy.
That is really crazy. It's like the brain is shedding neurons or something.
It's like you are interested in something as a baby, but then your parents keep telling you, oh, that's not there, that's not real, this is that, and that is that, and you just decide to see it differently. So crazy. Says it's still unclear when exactly human consciousness begins, but we hope our paper will guide new research by reviewing what we already know and what questions remain. I'm fascinated by the question of whether infants or even fetuses can already dream. A promising new theory of dreaming is Eric Hole's overfitted brain hypothesis, which says that dreams are essentially scrambled versions of inputs from waking life that help with generalization learning so that you learn to recognize things in new contexts and new situations. Okay. A newborn has barely begun to learn anything yet, but perhaps they already dream about the sounds and smells of their mothers. If fetuses dream, perhaps they dream of the taste of the amniotic fluid. Whoa. As I recently told Der Spiegel, which I guess is a magazine, dreams are weird, and fetal dreams, if they occur, are probably weirder than anything we can imagine. And that's the whole article, and that was a very, very interesting article. More so at the beginning of the, in the last segment, it sparked a lot more interest from us because it's just, I don't know, like I feel like everybody has an opinion on it.
Yeah, it's very thought-provoking, too. And this is something, like, people don't always think about, you know what I mean?
Yeah, they don't typically think about infants having consciousness or babies having consciousness, especially when it comes to things like male circumcision. They're like, oh, well, they're not going to remember that, but we're going to remember things like that.
Yeah, they remember it in some way, and it's like I was saying in the last segment, it's not always you remembering with your thinking brain, but the body remembers, and that absolutely... I mean, how could it not affect someone?
And even just things like when you're in the fetus, you're affected by it for the rest of your life. And one thing about it is that you could be affected by something for the rest of your life without specifically remembering every detail, like, oh, a fight between your mom and your dad and you're in utero.
Yeah.
Well, it's that you didn't even understand the language. All you understood was the vibes. It's sometimes like you wake up from a dream and it's really hard to remember because it was more vibes than images. Like, that happens to me all the time. But it could definitely change your whole life.
Yeah, you remember how you felt, but you don't necessarily remember the details of what happened.
Well, that was a really interesting article. I'm going to move on to this article from the AP. It says, the New York Times sues OpenAI and Microsoft for using its stories to train chatbots. The New York Times is striking back against the threat that artificial intelligence poses to the news industry, filing a federal lawsuit Wednesday against OpenAI and Microsoft seeking to end the practice of using its stories to train chatbots. And I think that's absolutely dumb, and nobody should be able to sue and win over this.
Oh, I agree. I think, if AI companies want to train their chatbots to look at news or whatever and analyze it, why not? They should be allowed to.
I mean, these people are putting this on the internet, and it's not like it's not the same as plagiarism. Like, I can see the idea that plagiarism is wrong. Not that I really believe in suing people over it, but I can see that it's not like a good, nice, cool thing to do. But it's not plagiarism. It's training the chatbots how to do things like the New York Times, and sorry, you're a household name. If somebody sits there and makes a parody and their brain is a lot like the AI, you have no control over that.
Plus, it gives the chatbot to learn about the news, and talk about, and not necessarily talk about it, but if someone asks a question about a news article, it's going to be able to come up with something about it.
Yeah, like, hey, OpenAI, write a news article about Riley and, blah, blah, blah. I don't know. And then they write a story about that, but it's written in a news article type format.
Right, as though it's written from the New York Times perspective.
Exactly. And the other thing about about these people that sue over stuff like this all the time, well, these entities, I guess, these corporations, I don't understand it because all it does is help get your brand out there. Like, somebody can type, right in the style of the New York Times,
Yeah.
And I just don't understand cutting that off. It's so stupid, and I just hate the litigiousness of the United States. It's so bad. The Times says the companies are threatening its livelihood by effectively stealing billions of dollars.
Yeah, right. No,
Billions.
it's not.
Well, maybe the New York Times should become more relevant and stop worrying about chatbots.
Yeah,
like that doesn't. If that's happening, it has nothing to do with chatbots. And this is another thing where, like intellectual property. You know what I mean? Like, this is worse than intellectual property. It's like, no, I just don't understand. Like, if somebody can program a chatbot to write like the New York Times, that's not the same as being the New York Times.
Yeah, they're not
as
copying.
the New York Times. They have so many more resources. They have so much more advertisement. Like, all of these things. I just don't understand.
It couldn't possibly be threatening them, and even if it was, well, maybe it's time for the New York Times to die.
And that's the thing. It's like, why are you so afraid of competition? You're the New York Times.
Yeah.
Yep. And the thing is, that's the thing about people suing people all day in the United States. It's just that I feel like there are certain things that should just die when it's their turn, when it's their time. Like we were talking about social media earlier. Maybe social media doesn't need to be on top forever. Like, there's nothing written in stone about that. It can eventually die.
It's the natural progression of things, and you'll see like where, Facebook and all of these, going back to social media, like they are constantly changing and developing, and that's what you have to do in any industry. You have to stay relevant. You have to stay with the times.
But they want to just keep making money like they always did in the 80s.
Yeah. Well, tough.
Says the media has already been pummeled by a migration of readers to online platforms. I guess it means the media as in like newspaper outlets, but while many publications, most notably The Times, have successfully carved out a digital space, the rapid development of AI threatens to significantly upend the publishing industry. Web traffic is an important component of the paper's advertising revenue and helps drive subscriptions to its online site, but the outputs from AI chatbots divert that traffic away from the paper and other copyright holders. I don't believe that. Like, seriously, when was the last time either of you guys were reading the output of an AI chatbot's newspaper article?
Never.
I've never done it.
I've never
Seriously,
done that.
never. Well,
yeah.
The only time ever was when people were jokingly writing articles about Ian going to prison and stuff like that, or just the Crypto 6 in general. So that has happened, but it wouldn't. It's not like, oh, if they didn't do that, I would have been reading the New York Times.
Well, and that's the thing. Like, to me, it's like I wouldn't trust an AI to be able to report news accurately, I guess. I say the same thing about the New York Times,
right?
Which is why I don't pay any attention to the New York Times. But I think I would probably, I don't know. I just wouldn't trust an AI at this point to be able to actually legitimately report on current events. Like I would, because obviously they're just getting that information from somewhere else. So I would just go to whatever the source was.
Maybe an AI can help draft an article to make it look more professional, but that's about it.
Yeah, like sometimes you get an article from like some other website, not usually like something like the New York Times or even AP, but something like the Daily Sun, I think, is one of those kind of like tabloidy but trying to be newsy ones, or like New York Post. And you're like, was this written by AI? It probably was. Saving somebody time.
Yeah, sometimes it feels that way.
It definitely does. It says web traffic is an important component of the paper's advertising revenue and helps drive subscriptions to its online site. But the outputs from AI chatbots divert that traffic away from the paper and other copyright holders, the Times says, making it less likely that users will visit the original source for the information. These bots compete with the content they are trained on, said Ian B. Crosby, partner and lead counsel at Sussman Godfrey, which is representing the Times. An OpenAI spokesperson said in a prepared statement that the company respects the rights of content creators and is committed to working with them to help them benefit from the technology and new revenue models. And that's the thing, like, they shouldn't have to. They shouldn't have to be working with old newspapers to help them benefit from their new technology. It's just the Times.
Yeah.
Times.
Yeah. Just the Times.
It's just how things are now. Like, you got to get over it. We don't have to, like, pay old people that sit around saying, like, I wish that the internet didn't exist. I wish we could go back to where the internet didn't exist. Do we have to give them money?
No, we don't.
It's stupid. Or just, like, you know, change the world for them. Like, you know what? You're right. We're not going to use the internet, okay? We're not going to use the internet because you don't like it that way.
We're going to cater to you to make you happy, okay?
It's just so silly.
And then the old people complain about the young people being fragile, so.
Right. But it's just that corporations are even worse about it. Like, these corporations believe that they need to be propped up even if they're a failure.
Well, and they're used to getting whatever they want.
Mm-hmm.
And they're used to, like, ruling their industry.
They're used to being the old guard. They're used to being the prominent news sources. And now that they're dying, it's hard for them to find any relevancy.
Says our ongoing conversations with the New York Times have been productive and moving forward constructively, so we are surprised and disappointed with this development, the spokesperson from OpenAI said. We're hopeful that we will find a mutually beneficial way to work together as we are doing with many other publishers. And that's a really nice PR way to say that these people are, you know, they suck.
Yeah, basically.
Microsoft did not respond to requests for comment. So I guess Microsoft is one of the other AIs.
Yeah, that's another AI developer.
Artificial intelligence companies scrape information available online, including articles published by news organizations, to train generative AI chatbots. The large language models are also trained on a huge trove of other human-written materials, which helps them to build a strong command of language and grammar and to answer questions correctly. And that's a good point. Like, if they win, could I sue and say, listen, OpenAI probably scraped my tweets. I could have 1 million followers and be making good money right now if OpenAI wasn't scraping my tweets off the internet. Could anyone do that? Like, even actually people with 1 million tweets, could they do that?
Maybe.
They really shouldn't let these people win this suit.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how it turns out. We'll have to follow it.
That's the thing. It could open up an entire can of worms that I just really don't think it's necessary.
Yeah.
Says the technology is still under development and gets many things wrong. In its lawsuit, for example, the Times said OpenAI's GPT-4 falsely attributed product recommendations to Wirecutter, the paper's product reviews site, endangering its reputation. Like, if anybody reads something written by OpenAI and they're like, whoa, this is true, now I think badly of this company, Wirecutter, well, then they're dumb. And it doesn't matter what they think.
It's important for us to remember that in this day and age, we have to vet everything that we read, and we don't really want to, but at the same time, it's important to do that.
Yeah, they could just write an article, educating people on stuff like that.
Yeah.
If they want to combat that. Microsoft has a partnership with OpenAI that allows it to capitalize on the company's AI technology. The Redmond, Washington tech giant is also OpenAI's biggest backer and has invested at least $13 billion into the company since the two began their partnership in 2019, according to the lawsuit. As part of the agreement, Microsoft's supercomputers help power OpenAI's AI research, and the tech giant integrates the startup's technology into its products. Wow, I had no idea that they were connected. 603-283-6160. It's Free Talk Live. You can bring up whatever's on your mind. More coming up. Don't go anywhere.
Avoid an unpleasant surprise at checkout. I'm Holland Cook with Inflation Hacks. You scored a great hotel rate online, but Mike, a frequent business traveler, warns about hidden fees. Some are mandatory, but others may only apply if you use certain services. If you don't expect to take advantage of the amenities a fee covers, try asking the hotel to remove it. And to duck that pricey daily Wi-Fi charge, use the personal hotspot feature on your smartphone. Before you book, Mike recommends resortfeechecker.com. Also on our blog, Anne Marie says she has sold lots of books that were gathering dust on Amazon. She says she still browses in bookstores, then buys used copies on Amazon if she can't find what she's looking for at the library. How are you coping? Post your inflation hacks at andyoucanquoteme.com.
From Feature Story News in Washington, I'm Caroline Malone. The United Nations has warned that the death of Hamas deputy chief Salah al-Rouri may escalate conflict in the Middle East. William Denslow reports from the UN headquarters in New York.
A spokesperson for the UN's mission in Lebanon says the Beirut attack could have devastating consequences on both sides of the border between Lebanon and Israel. Hamas has described it as a terrorist act, and its ally Hezbollah says it was an attack on Lebanon's sovereignty. Israel, without claiming responsibility, insists it was not an attack on Lebanon. As the conflict between Hamas and Israel continues, the UN has raised concerns over the risk of regional spillover. UN Secretary-General Antonio Guterres has called on all parties to exercise maximum restraint, implement a ceasefire and de-escalate tensions. William Denslow, New York.
A 10-year-old boy has been arrested on suspicion of killing another child with his father's gun in the US state of California. Police found the 10-year-old boy bleeding in a parking lot, and he was later pronounced dead at the hospital. The suspect was allegedly angry after losing an informal bike race. His father has also been booked on suspicion of possession of a firearm by a felon, child endangerment, and acting as an accessory to a crime. US correspondent Kate Fisher reports.
According to the sheriff's office, the boy had gone out to his father's truck to get him cigarettes when he found a loaded gun. The victim had been riding his bike when the boy bragged that his father had a gun and then shot him once before running into a nearby apartment. The suspect's father was arrested on suspicion of carrying a stolen and loaded firearm in a vehicle, child endangerment, and being an accessory to a crime after the fact. Kate Fisher, Washington.
Junior doctors in England have started the new year with 6 days of industrial action in a long-running dispute over pay. If it continues as planned, it will be the longest strike by doctors in National Health Service history. Stuart Smith reports from outside University College Hospital in London.
Last year, they already managed to agree a 9% pay rise, and at the end of last year, they were negotiating with the government about boosting that by 3% more, but it's of course far short of what they would like of 35%. Now, junior doctors in Scotland did manage to negotiate a 17% rise, making the argument that the cost of living crisis, inflation and a lack of pay rises over the last decade meant that that figure was deserved. But in the meantime, junior doctors say they will strike until the government starts to make them a, quote, credible offer. They make up around half of the workforce in the NHS, and so it's having big impacts and will have big impacts on the availability of non-urgent
Yep, we still do email. Drop your email address in the entry box at freetalklive.com and you'll be kept in the loop with Free Talk Live.
Talk Live, talk radio that you control, 603-283-6160. And with you in the studio tonight, you've got me, Bonnie.
Riley.
And Nikki.
And we've been talking tonight about many different topics. That's how Free Talk Live is. We'll be on some topic about some article, and then somebody will call in and even change the subject, which is great. And actually tonight, or right now, we actually have a caller on the line. So David from New Mexico, what's on your mind?
Lots of stuff, Bonnie.
Like what?
I got the earliest. I got an earliest memory, but first of all, radio business news. The morons at Kotex Bloody Mess Radio in Golden Showers, Arizona, they had you on Monday through Friday, and they're replacing you with that Kate Daly, annoying chick on the radio. Unfortunately,
Kate Daly.
Daly, yeah,
she's actually. So funny thing about Kate Daly is she broadcasts out of Southern Utah. I used to listen to her when I lived in St. George several years ago, but I just stopped listening to her because she became too much of a conspiracy kook. She became a Trumpite, and I was like, dude, I don't want to listen to you anymore.
Wow.
You're not pro-liberty, you're pro-America. I can't take that. So I stopped listening to her. I mean, she's a nice lady, but I think she's too much of a statist for my tastes. But anyway, go ahead, David.
And she's annoying. Her I mean, not that I'm not, but her cadence when she speaks, she pauses after every word. She's like, and then.
Yeah.
Oh no, that's horrible for radio too.
Wait, are you saying you like my voice more than her, David?
Oh hell, are you a mind reader? Is there a camera in here somewhere, Bonnie, or a microphone?
No.
Or in my head?
It's just that you used to make fun of my voice.
I wasn't actually making fun of it, Bonnie. I told you back then. I said imitation is the what is it? The finest, whatever the
form of flattery.
Finest form of flattery.
Yeah,
something like that. And Bonnie.
Oh
because I liked it.
Oh my gosh.
But
yeah,
actually,
I have a camera in there also.
I want to put some clothes on, man. I don't like this. I don't like this invasion of privacy stuff. But yeah, I actually had that thought earlier that I was going to tell the people at Kotex Radio, KTOX, in Needles, California, that I actually way prefer Bonnie's voice to this Kate Daly thing.
That's awesome. Thank you, David. What was the earliest memory you said you had? That sounds really interesting.
Well, the coolest, I got several actually, and they were from like 18 months old.
Wow.
And and the coolest one was, because this blows me away. It's like I was in the living room one day, and pictured. I mean, this is like way back, however old I am. It was that long ago, and so everything is like vintage furnishings, vintage decor, vintage everything, and I'm in the living room. There's a TV on the TV stand over there, and you got your couch and your lamps and whatever. And I had this thought. I was looking at the electrical outlet, and I'm like, the thought I had was, why does the electricity have to go through the wire in the wall? Why can't it just go through the air to what you want to power on? Like the TV.
Huh.
So
Wow.
How's that for 18 months old?
That's crazy.
Yeah, and then flash forward all these years, and now they actually do that, like with wireless charging for your phone.
Wow. Yeah. So David was probably Tesla in a past life. Nikola Tesla.
Yeah, actually, I was going to say. I mean, I don't know about that, but what's impressive is having that at that age. Where does that come from? Did you have some past life where you were involved with electricity? What was it? But obviously, Nikola Tesla was actually talking about electricity going through the air instead of through a wire. He was actually experimenting with that, however many decades before I was even born.
Right, that's why I said that. That is, it makes me think maybe there's something that you carried over from, if not a past life, because some people don't even necessarily believe in that. It could even just be like whatever you were, your consciousness couldn't have possibly just appeared out of nowhere. We know that things don't appear out of nowhere. Maybe your consciousness existed in another realm and it knew things like that were possible, and you were just like still holding on to a little bit of that. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I've had that thought. I honestly, I have no idea for real, how can I know any of that? But that is a thought that I've had, is if that's a possibility of how that happens.
Wow. What was the other one? Didn't you say you have more than one?
Yeah. Well, in that same vein, I actually still have a baby spoon, or actually my mom has it, and it has it's a silver baby spoon, and it has a nick burned out of it where I had stuck it in the outlet, trying to experiment with electricity.
Oh my gosh.
And and that was in that same 18 months. And then the way that I found out that I was that young was I was telling my mom a while back about a dream that I had. I wanted to ask her about it, see if she knew anything about it. I said I had this dream when I was, like 18 months old, 2 years, whatever it was, and that I was outside in the yard, and this huge wind just came up out of nowhere. And as a toddler that had just started to walk, I was trying to make my way back to the door of the house, and I was literally like having to lean into the wind, like literally like a I don't know, maybe almost a 45-degree angle, if you can picture that.
Wow.
In order to not get blown over backwards. And she got this really blank look on her face, and her mouth dropped open, and she goes, "You remember that?" And it turns out it wasn't a dream. It had actually happened.
Wow.
Interesting.
That's so cool.
Yeah. So, but yeah. So and I didn't know that it was 10, 15 years ago that I had that conversation. I didn't know I had thoughts that went back that early until I had that conversation.
That's really, really cool. Thank you for the call, David. What'd you say?
Wait, here's a quick good one for you. I just in that same time frame. I like I said, I feel like I was born an adult, and I've deteriorated since then. I've gone back to being more of a child. But because one thing I did at that same time, I was sitting in my high chair at the breakfast table, and my mom asked me if I wanted more milk, and I said, yeah, half a glass. And so she started pouring the milk, and I had this, and I predicted that when she got to half a glass, she ain't going to stop. And so what I did is I had this plan before she ever got to half a glass. I said, when she gets to a half a glass, I'm going to pull my glass out from under the milk.
Oh, no.
So I did, and she kept pouring the milk onto the table and got really mad at me.
Wow. That's pretty crazy.
That is crazy.
That's so funny. It's just so funny how everybody's brains work differently. And thank you for the call, David. He brought that up because in the last segment, we were talking about the possibility that babies' consciousness is already inside them when they're in utero or before they were conceived, or did it just appear inside of them one day when they're like 3 years old? I know that there's this one YouTuber lady, and I'm not going to remember her channel. It was so out there, deep in the rabbit hole, like not a whole lot of followers, and my older sister likes to follow her. Well, she claims that she remembers popping into her body at 5 years old, and she said she thinks whoever was in that body before got the heck out of it because her childhood was so miserable, and for whatever reason she got plopped in.
That's weird.
That is kind of weird.
You would think that they would just like die and reset.
Yeah.
I don't know what
Can
to
you
think
just
about
like
that.
eject your soul?
That's
crazy.
That is really fascinating.
She's crazy. So
because to me that doesn't that doesn't sound right to me in my intuition, but like I'm not saying she's wrong.
Yeah, that's just what she thinks happened. But so Nikki, you had a story that you brought in tonight that is talking about people's unhealthy obsession with sickness.
Yes, so this is from the Washington Post. And an unhealthy obsession with sickness increases the risk of dying. And I liked this one for our Wednesday night shows because it kind of goes along with a lot of what we typically talk about with like law of attraction, manifestation, how your mind creates your reality. And I believe that our body and our cells are always constantly listening to us and our thoughts. And of course, it makes a difference what you fuel your body with and, physically, like what you're eating and exercising and all of that. But I also do think that so much of sickness is cultivated from the mind. And this just kind of goes hand in hand with that a little bit. So the article goes on to say 2 Swedish people who were examined in a recent study had similar backgrounds. They were both born in the same year and lived in the same country, or in the same county, rather. But one of them, a diagnosed hypochondriac, was much more likely to die of a serious illness.
And if the listeners don't know what that is, a hypochondriac is someone who constantly is thinking, oh, I'm sick, I'm going to get sick, being obsessed with being sick.
Yes. Yeah. Constantly worried that they have some illness. So Swedish researchers studied people with and without I don't know if I'm going to be able to pronounce this. Hypochondriasis, also known as illness anxiety disorder, a diagnosis given to people who are paranoid about being or becoming sick. The study, published this month in the JAMA Psychiatric Journal, found that people diagnosed with hypochondriasis hypochondriasis.
I've never heard it that way. I've only ever heard the word
hypochondriac. Yeah. Hypochondriasis is how it's spelled. We're 84% more likely than people without the disorder to die of dozens of conditions, especially heart, blood, and lung diseases, as well as suicide. And part of me wonders too, because we all know that person who's like refuses to go to the doctor just because they're like, I think there might be something wrong with me and I just don't want to know. But I also think that to a certain extent, I think if you go to the doctors, maybe they will find something wrong with you. And I do believe that our body has an innate ability to heal itself. You know, obviously, like we need to help it out a little bit.
Oh,
but
for
I
sure.
do think there are so many illnesses that we have that might be underlying that we could heal ourselves of. But if you go to the doctors and they run a test and they find it, then they might pump you full of medications and they may give you all these treatments.
Give you the idea that it's, untreatable or blah, blah, blah.
Or something. Or yeah, who knows? So I'm very convinced that certain things, this is very controversial, but I say it a lot. I'm very convinced that a lot of the treatments for a lot of these illnesses, especially things like cancer, where they're giving people chemotherapy, which is literally poisoning your body, I'm convinced that it is the treatment that kills people and it is not always the disease. And I'm not going to say that no one has ever died from a disease before. And I'm not going to say that, like medical intervention and medications is always bad. I'm just saying maybe if, maybe if the thought isn't implanted in your head, maybe your body will just heal whatever's going on with you and you continue on without this diagnosis.
There's all kinds of studies about this. Go ahead, Riley.
So it sounds like there might be a mind-body connection. Like if you're thinking something, your mind's gonna project this into your body, and your body's gonna be like, "Yeah, I'm gonna project that for you."
So I believe that.
The article goes on to say it's kind of a paradoxical finding, isn't it? Researcher David Maddox-Coles told the Washington Post. They worry so much about health and death, and then they end up having a higher risk of death anyways. Previous research has found that people diagnosed with mental disorders are more likely to die at a younger age than those without the disorders. So this goes beyond this, illness, anxiety, being a hypochondriac. This goes with like any mental disorder. And I'm sure like if you're depressed or anxious, like that has to wreak havoc on your body. I mean, they say they even like heart doctors, like cardiologists will tell you, stress is the worst thing for your heart. If you are stressed out, if you work a stressful job, doesn't matter what you eat, doesn't matter how much you exercise, you are more likely to die of a heart attack or heart disease.
This could be why Jesus says, don't worry about what clothes you're going to wear every day. Don't worry about what you're going to eat every day. Yeah. And then he points out, do the birds worry about what they're going to eat? No. Do the flowers worry about how they're going to be dressed? No, but look how they're taken care of.
Absolutely.
Yep. It's just because what can worrying do for you? Nothing. It can only hurt you.
Worry doesn't take away the sorrow of tomorrow. It just affects you how you live today.
Yeah, exactly. It just takes away the peace that you have today.
Yep.
So this researcher goes on to say, sorry, I got lost. So Maddox-Coles said he had wondered if it would also be the case for hypochondriacs, prompting his research. So he discovered, that was already a finding that just in general, if you have mental disorders, that you're more likely to die at a younger age. So he was wondering if that would be the same with hypochondriacs. So Maddox-Coles said many hypochondriacs remain paranoid even if doctors assure them that they're healthy. Searching for information about their symptoms on the internet can also worsen a patient's anxiety. They experience a lot of suffering and hopelessness. About a year ago.
About Googling.
Yeah.
I'm not a hypochondriac, but when I am sick and I'm like, well, what if it's this? And I Google.
It's never good. Never good. So about a year ago, researchers began gathering data from Swedish census and health databases between 1997 and 2020. They identified 4,129 people who were diagnosed with hypochondriasis and compared each person to a group of 10 people who didn't have hypochondriasis, but had the same sex, birth year, and county of residence. Researchers also considered marital status, education level, and family income. So this is sounds like a pretty good in-depth research study.
Yep.
Over roughly 9 months of observation, 268 hypochondriacs and 1,761 people without hypochondriasis died. The hypochondriasis died about 5 years younger on average than those without hypochondriasis. Researchers also found that hypochondriasis can impact quality of life. Of course it does.
Yep.
People without hypochondriasis were more likely to be educated, married, and make more money than the hypochondriacs.
Wow.
And I think that could probably be the same for a lot of mental illnesses. You know what I mean? Like, bipolar, depression and anxiety. I mean, it's a lot of these mental illnesses. It's kind of hard to build relationships all the time.
Yeah, I mean, it would be more difficult, at least, I think, if you're sitting around worried about everything all day to, go out and meet someone.
And, like, you're so worried about your illnesses. I mean, like, that's your main focus. So I could see.
Or just, like, regular anxiety, like, you meet someone and then, like, it's hard to connect because you're like, oh, I think that they hate me. I think they're mad at me or something.
Yeah, imagine having social anxiety, trying to find a partner. Yeah, that must be pretty hard, I think. So hypochondriasis is underdiagnosed, Matthias Cole said. So the risks of death could be even higher when accounting for undiagnosed cases.
I'm surprised that's underdiagnosed. I feel like I know so many people that at least say they have that.
Yeah, but I would think maybe it might look bad if you're going to the doctor all the time and the doctor's like hypochondriac and like puts that as a diagnosis in their medical record. Like, it might feel, because the hypochondriacs, they're already like, the doctor is always blowing me off. I have all of these symptoms. I'm sick. I'm dying. And the doctors are just blowing me off. So if they were to put that in the chart, that
and you're
might,
crazy.
Yeah, like, no, you're just a hypochondriac. I'm sure some doctors totally would.
They might not want to because they're like, yeah, keep coming back.
Yeah.
When you're worried.
I mean, yeah, depending. Yeah.
I think it's always good to be aware of your symptoms and go to the doctor if you need to. But there's a point which is paranoia, and I think it's got to be up to the individual to figure out, okay, what's paranoia and what's not, and
it's hard.
It's that balance we were talking about earlier. There probably are some people that are so unaware of what's going on in their body that they're just like, ow, ow, and they're not even thinking about it.
Yeah.
So there could be another end of the spectrum.
And of course, like, we've all heard of stories where people are going to the doctors like, I have these like legit symptoms, and the doctor's like, yeah, I think you just have anxiety.
You're fine.
And they're like going, so like,
then I have a baby in the toilet.
Yeah, or something, you know what I mean?
Man.
Yeah, like these things happen where, and then finally someone finds a doctor that actually listens to them, or some sort of healthcare provider, or like somebody to finally listen to them. And then it turns out they have something going on that none of the other doctors could or would diagnose.
Sure, and I think that's important to think about too, is, some people may have unexplained illnesses that doctors don't know anything about, and doctors might just blow them off for a while, and then all of a sudden this doctor comes along and
that could probably give you hypochondriasis.
Yeah. So there's a tendency to perhaps debase their worries about their health as being made up. Matthias Coles said he has a few theories about these findings. Hypochondriacs' life might be shorter because of chronic stress, which might also cause them to self-medicate with alcohol and drugs.
Wow.
He said some patients might...
That'll make you feel better.
I know,
and
right?
be more healthy.
He said some patients might avoid visiting doctors out of fear that they'll be diagnosed with a serious illness. Mm-hmm. So that was kind of like the opposite of my theory, I guess, from earlier. But this sounds like he's just... I don't think this is anything that is actually coming from the findings. Yeah, these are just his theories. Matthias Coles hopes to learn more about hypochondriasis such as how the disorder impacts patients' abilities to pursue education and careers. For now, he said that the more attention and resources should go into caring for people with this illness, which can be treated through cognitive behavioral therapy and antidepressants.
Oh, no.
That'll not make you feel good.
Yeah, it won't. It'll not make you feel.
That'll not make you feel.
I guess it depends on the person. Some people might find it beneficial to take like an SSRI, but I don't think prescribing them to everybody is always a good idea.
I agree. Like, I can't say that I know that there's no one that it would help. I just really believe that if it's not your last thing to do, like you haven't gone in like exercise, like lost weight, started making friends, just change something huge in your life, take some psychedelics, and you haven't done that, and you're just like, oh, give me
people
antidepressants.
Don't want to do the work, and I think a lot of like depression and anxiety, a lot of physical illness, and a lot of the things that many people deal with, it takes a lot of work to get through those things.
Oh, of course it does.
Most people don't want to do the work, and I think it's easier for most people to take a pill. Maybe it'll work for them. Maybe it won't, but I do firmly believe there are always other ways that people can get through whatever they're going through. But it's also like not for me to decide whether, you know what I mean? Like if somebody doesn't want to make these like massive fundamental changes to their lives, like
that are hard.
Yeah, like it's really none of my business. And if you want to be on antidepressants or whatever, like that's up to them. I do think they should be available for people that want them.
Yep.
And I don't think they should be regulated.
Yeah.
I agree. Well, we have this article from Zero Hedge I wanted to quickly get into because it's pretty hilarious that Riley brought in. It says, King Charles delivers highly politicized speech to support collectivist net zero project.
So a man with a magical title says some things about a project.
Yes, a collectivist project.
Yep.
It's a net zero, I think, is, we're going to no longer put out any carbon emissions from our country, blah, blah, blah. And we're going to...
How is that possible?
Yeah, how is that possible? We all breathe carbon.
It says, King Charles is no friend of general humanity. Speaking at COP28, he said, the earth does not belong to us. We belong to the earth.
Wow.
I mean, I kind of agree with that.
Right.
But at the same time,
I don't like that he's saying it.
But he took a private jet to get there.
Oh, yeah. He took a private jet.
They all do.
And then also the fact that he says the earth does not belong to us reeks of he doesn't believe in private property. That's how I feel.
Yeah.
As with many know your place elitists, he appears to abhor the impacts that humans have on the planet. He exhibits, sadly, on a world stage, a snobbish disdain for capitalism, what used to be dismissed in British aristocratic circles as trade. This capitalist trend over the last 200 years has harnessed the power of natural hydrocarbons to raise billions to a standard of living and health unimaginable to previous generations. In 2009, Charles said we can no longer afford consumerism and the age of convenience was over. Wow, so he's not a psychic. Not for the new British king, it need hardly be observed. He lives a life of pampered indulgence where no expense is spared to ensure his every comfort. And that's quite ironic.
Oh, yeah, because he wants to preach to you about the environment while he lives in relative comfort and gets to fly everywhere he wants to fly.
There's always an exemption for the royals.
Oh, of course there is.
This has been Free Talk Live. Thank you so much. We'll be back live tomorrow. Peace. You can go to our website, freetalklive.com, if you want more.
Some of you have wanted to support Free Talk Live's mission on a monthly basis, but don't want to support Patreon. Now we have an alternative that also helps our premier streaming platform, Odyssey. Visit video.freetalklive.com and click Join at the top of the channel. You can subscribe for $5 per month, and unlike other subscription services, Odyssey adds their processing fee on top, so it'll cost a little over $5 per month, but Free Talk Live will receive the entire amount you pledged. Higher donation tiers are available if you're feeling so inspired. You'll get a special membership badge that's visible in the Odyssey chat room and